Hey, everybody. I'm Jesse.
And I'm Maeve.
And I'm Kylie.
And this is Boring Conversation.
Welcome to Boring Conversation, a Malifaux podcast.
Welcome back to Boring Conversation, everybody. This is officially the second episode that we have recorded post Captain Con. And yes, that's right, the second, but the first one hasn't posted yet because it was an editing nightmare. I'm getting to that. Couple days, guys. Trust me. At this point, it will have been posted already. But yeah. Anyway, 2 episodes in the pipe and behind by about a week on releases. But that's okay. We're gonna get there. The reason I bring up Captain Con is because one of our guests today, Kylie Woodland, came to Captain Con all the way from Canada. And I do believe it was your first tournament, was it not?
It was. It bought my official tournament Jerry.
Fantastic. It was super exciting to meet you there. And I know we got plenty of time to hang out during the off hours too, which was just delightful. So before we get into the episode, I just want to give everybody a chance to share what they have going on. So I've already talked about Captain Con quite a bit over the last few months. Again, I want to thank all of our sponsors and everybody that traveled in from the far-flung corners of the country and out of the country, as a matter of fact. Thank you, Kylie, and all the other Canadians that came down to join us. Big news in the Boring Conversation world is that we do have the new Patreon. That link got posted just shortly before Captain Con, and I would encourage everybody to hop on over to it, take a look at the backer tiers, and just kind of help us cover some of the costs of running this show month in and month out. Of course, we do have the Easter sale coming up very soon, and I would love it if you all would consider shopping during said Easter sale using our weird affiliate link. Give us your money, please, and thankyou.com/boring conversation. And I know I've been talking about this for a little while, but we are going to be starting up some weekly Discord hobby hangouts. I just have to nail down the day. I was actually going to be starting it last week, but had some stuff come up. This week, I think it's going to be the time, and we're probably talking Tuesdays. So if by the time this episode actually gets posted, you haven't had a chance to hop on in, take a look at the events page on the Boring Conversation Discord and come hang out during one of the soon-to-be weekly scheduled hobby hangs. That's pretty much all I have going. So, Maeve, what do you have going on?
Well, seeing as how I don't really have, unfortunately, a lot of in-person Malifaux stuff going on lately, I do have a bunch of RPG stuff going on. So you can find me over at Third Floor Wars with Craig doing, we're still doing Brindlewood Bay. That's going to wrap up soon. And then for the podcast Fables Around the Table, we just started an Old Gods of Appalachia RPG, which is really fun. I'm having a blast with that. So you can find that on wherever podcasts are, and then you can find Third Floor Wars on either Twitch or YouTube. And check it out because it's a lot of fun, and you get to watch me just absolutely be unhinged on camera.
When I went down to the Houston GT, the Lone Star Fodown, the Dragon's Horde, the game store that hosted it, actually had the Old Gods of Appalachia books in person. Like, they were in my hands, and somehow I managed not to leave with them, and I don't know how. Definitely a mistake.
Books are
I look to rectify that soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, speaking of RPGs, at this point, the episode will have already posted, but that's kind of the next thing that I have coming up soon is I got a chance to get an overview and character building session for Through the Breach, which Jeff Dice, Doug Broman, and Vic from the Steam-Powered Scoundrels podcast and Defective Dice were kind enough to host for me. So that's the episode that's turning into a bear to edit. But hopefully at this point, you all have had a chance to take it in and share your thoughts with me. But I'll tell you what, that session was a whole heck of a lot of fun. And I really love how unique that system is as compared to pretty much every other RPG that I've, kind of dipped my toes into over the last few years.
Character
So
creation in
that,
that game is
yeah.
fantastic. I love the
yeah.
character creation.
The theme too. I mean, half the fun of Malifaux is playing with the models, but it's you're inside of a story that is way richer and heavier than like anyone gives it credit for. And when you play through the Breach, they're just like, oh, okay, well, instead of playing with something you've got 3 paragraphs of information on, here's chapters of it, and how amazing and detailed it is.
Yeah, the system itself is not my favorite, but I do love the character creation and of course the story. Like, if you play Malifaux and you don't love the lore, I'm not sure what you're doing. Like, it's fantastic. Yeah.
So what about you, Kylie? Do you have anything new and exciting coming up in the near future? Live events, anything you're getting into online, video games, whatever you want?
Not too much. Looking at possibly going down now that I got the tournament bug. Might be going down to the tournament in Boston that is being touted all over the place. And other than that, just trying to build a local meta up here in Frosty Canada and Toronto. Pre-COVID, we were pretty good for numbers, probably about 20 or so people. Post-COVID, it's been a bit of a struggle. We only really have one place we can play, but they're great store that we can use the basement. And we went from about 5 people to about 45 in our Discord over the last couple months. So
wow,
that's just good to see. So anyone, the one that's out there trying to build your local meta, it's slow and frustrating, but keep at it. And, thanks to people such as these lovely 2 individuals I'm speaking to right now that are producing content and keeping the conversation going, I think that helps, because getting in-person game time is very difficult, but you could still love this hobby and this world in this game and get just as excited about stuff if you don't get to play it right away. And I think that goes a long way. Why we have people I haven't seen for years that are still messaging me and they're like, oh my God, you see the new stuff? I haven't played in 2 years, but I bought the book immediately.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And that's something I've been working on in my neck of the woods as well. We really, the shop that had previously been very supportive, one of them unfortunately ended up having to close its doors, and then the other one had some space constraints that led to an expansion, but they had to pare back the number of games that they carried while they were kind of doing that. So doing the same thing here, trying to build the community back up, from the ground up, and I'm starting to get some bites and interest. So I know the feeling. So, of course, we've kind of hinted at what we're going to be doing online, but if you aren't on the Discord, but if you're not a part of the Patreon, you probably wouldn't know what we're here to talk about today just yet. So we're going to bury the lead just a little bit more, and I'm going to ask you folks what you have to drink tonight. And myself, I have a batch of homebrew that a friend of mine and I brewed about a month and a half ago. It is an American pale ale with some rye, and we actually used some white spruce tips from Alaska that I had in my freezer for probably like 6 months to a year. But it's pretty darn good. Not super hoppy, kind of has like a nice chewy malt character to it, and the spruce tips actually really complement the hops in the pale ale quite well. Maeve, what you got?
I haven't really had anything big today. I got like a cherry Pepsi, but yeah, I mean, nothing really super new lately. You know me, I'm stuck on the Guinness. I like my stout.
Yeah. It's funny. I brought my daughter and her friend to go see the new Demon Slayer movie that's in the theaters right now. And the soda machine was out of sparkling water. So I had a soda, and I haven't had a soda in a real long time. And I'll tell you what, man, fucking cherry Coke gets me every time. It's so goddamn good. So
I
good.
thought you were going to say the theater had a Guinness machine. I'm just like, what?
No.
That offends me on 3 different levels.
Yeah, I got stuck slumming it on soda, but I'll tell you what, it wasn't so bad. What about
riding
you,
the sugar high for the whole movie?
Yes.
Yeah, I have. I actually took some tequila, some 1800 Reposado, and I had been soaking it with some jalapeno peppers today, and I'm doing that with some soda water because I figured I should be prepped in case there's any super spicy takes or anything tonight.
There could be. So spicy takes. Well,
You never know.
you know, there's a lot of other podcast channels that have, model breakdowns and hot takes and tier lists on all the new Ashes of Malifaux stuff. And we definitely wanted to get in the game here with Boring Conversation as well, but we wanted to do things a little bit differently. So what we decided to do is we're actually going to do a draft. We're each going to be going through all of the factions in the book, and we're going to be essentially selecting the one model that we feel like is a real standout within the faction. We're going to share our thoughts on why we feel like it's a real standout, and it could be for lore or design, raw model power or interactions with the rest of the models in the faction, or their specific keyword. Maybe they elevate the keyword in some way or plug a hole that, it's really been struggling to deal with for a long time. But once one of us picks that model, the other ones can't pick it because it's a draft. So we're, I think, going to be having a little bit of fun, potentially stealing each other's picks. And I certainly hope that you guys have some alternates written down, because I'm sure that some of mine are probably going to get snatched right out from in front of me. Yeah, there'll be some cussing. It's going to happen. After everything is said and done, we're going to have finalized teams, and we're going to actually invite the rest of the listeners to vote on who, quote unquote, won the draft, who made the best picks. If you were mushing all these models together on a team, you could, consider that too. But I mean, really, it's just going to be who do we think got the best picks, and who really put the most thought into the picks that they made. We're going to be, at the end of the episode, we're just going to be kind of going over our teams, as it were, and then posting them online so that everybody can share their thoughts and opinions as well. Last but not least, we are going to be doing the snake draft style. So when we get started in just a sec, I'm going to basically use a random number generator and assign a number to each one of us, and that's going to determine our pick order. It's, in terms of picks, it's going to go first, second, third, second, first, second, third, etc., all the way down. And like we said, a single model cannot get picked more than once. One of the things that we did say is that if, for instance, we pick a model like, Bash, the big gator from the Bayou, it's a Bayou model. It doesn't have any Bayou keywords. It's just versatile. The only keyword it has is December. It is going to use the pick for the faction that it's a part of, even if the keywords that it has are not a part of that faction. So just that way we don't end up with somebody sneaking in a bunch of Bayou picks for stuff that crosses over into other factions. Hint, hint, Maeve.
I would never.
You would never.
Other factions? People don't play different factions.
Yeah. Tell me about it, boy. I keep saying I'm going to get back into Explorers, and then I see all this sparkly Thunders and Bayou stuff, and oh boy, it's going to be a struggle for sure.
And that takes something to say that Bayou is sparkly.
It is very
except
sparkly.
for Wong.
It's
I guess Wong is sparkly.
He's extra sparkly. Wasn't that one of his upgrades in second edition? Extra sparkly, something like that.
It was sparkly.
I think
so.
Yeah.
Something about.
Oh, I think it was
the glow or something.
It was a thing that buffed glowy, but made them better at interacting instead of better at fighting or something like that. I can't remember. Anyway, that's second edition, not third edition. So let's just get into some random numbers and we'll get it going here. So I have a random number generator ready to go. I'm just going to give myself one, then we'll go to Maeve, and then we'll go to Kylie. That'll dictate the order, and we will get right into it. So I have a... I didn't rig this. I have a 100.
All right,
I swear I didn't rig this, people. Maeve has a 67, and Kylie has a 38.
Missed
so
it by
I
two
guess.
Numbers, damn.
Yeah, I guess that means I'm gonna. Yeah, I know. I guess that means I get first pick. So just to make sure that things don't get too confusing and we're not picking from all over the place all at once, we are going to go in faction order. So that's going to give us Arcanists first. And my number one pick. Well, I got 3 written down here, and I tell you what, I was pretty sure that I had my first one nailed, but All right, I'm gonna go with my gut on this one. I'm gonna go with Cedra and Sightless Snow as my pick.
What? Gasp.
Yeah, I know,
Shock.
right? An Old Gods of Appalachia deer thing with fucking crazy rules. Yeah, tell me about it. So, why did I pick Cedra? So, I think that this model is really the set of models, I guess, because they do come as a pair. They're really going to change and enhance the way that both their keywords work, and I see a lot of play for this thing out of keyword as well. I think we're going to be seeing it in a lot of different Arcanist crews. I mean, just the fact that we've cut a, granted it's 50 mil, but a move 6 unimpeded thing that has onward is kind of amazing, even at face value, without even taking into account the fact that it can get mutation upgrades from Marcus. It just starts with a mutation upgrade regardless of what crew you hire it into, so you can just give it wings and then it's even faster, or charge through on its crazy 3-4-5 damage attack. Like, there's just so much tech and flexibility within this one little set of models. I mean, Demise Eternal on top of all that, and it can swap back and forth between that and its regular human form, where now it's got it's shooting blast markers and dropping ice pillars, and I don't know, it's just kind of the total package. What do you guys think?
That thing is nearly unkillable. I think especially when you put butterfly jump on it, or disguised and stealth, whatever, like, it's just going to be unstoppable. There's no way to kill this thing without putting half of your turn into it, and like, at this point you're wasting so much AP. This thing is insane. It's gonna be
Well,
really
and
good.
it's ridiculous too, because if you even skip the upgrades and you split this into 2 models, you would hire both these models.
Yeah,
Like,
sure.
it's one model that turns from one great model to another great model. And being able to do activations like Breath of Frosting somebody right in their face just to be rude, and then transforming, and then going for a little free move out, and then another walk, or you could leap with your, like, you just, even if you think you've got it, it's just going to be real insulting and just transform into a form you can't kill it anyways, and then it's going to be halfway across the board doing something else to somebody else. She's quite the she's quite the beast.
Now, Jesse, do you think you like her better for Chimera or for December?
I think I like her more for December because she does stuff in December that, I mean, aside from the Blessed, you couldn't really do, and now you can take both Cedra and the Blessed.
Yeah, and you've got
so, like, I don't even know how you
schemers.
fit the Ice Golem in anymore, because I don't really think it's necessary.
Yeah.
Especially in this gaining grounds. I can't envision a game that I played any December keyword without both Cedra, Sightless Snow, and Blessed in the crew at this point.
And Raspy's already cheating at this GG, so
yeah,
she can vote through. She can vote
so
by proxy.
Yeah, exactly. She can vote by proxy, and Sightless Snow can attack by proxy through Ice Pillars to give out slow, which is like absolutely crippling for some of these interact heavy strats, especially votes in particular. It's just gnarly, absolutely gnarly. So that's all I got to say on these 2 models. If neither of you had anything else to chime in, I guess we can move on to Maeve with your pick.
Yeah.
So what you got?
I am going to pick this almost. I mean, like, I like the model, but I'm going to entirely pick this on the fact that, or I guess I like the rules, but the model just looks like it's going to be amazing. Is Boilermaker?
Yeah, that was my second pick.
This guy is so cool. Like, I will never do this model justice. Like, just looking at it, like, I will never paint it in a way that makes it, like, I can't wait to see, like, the top level painters get a hold of this model, because it's going to be gorgeous.
Oh yeah, you got people putting LEDs inside it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. For sure. But, like, so you get a 2/4/6 on a stat 6 attack with, like, built-in burning, so it's essentially like a 3/5/7. It's got shove aside, and we all know shove aside is terrible, and nobody ever should take that. And it's an enforcer which means you can just hand it Soulstone Cash, and suddenly it's a armor 1 with self heal and defense, and can use Soulstones. It's just it's such a good model. And this Rise from the Ashes ability, after this model declares a walk action, if it's within 1 of a scrap or a pyre, instead of moving normally, it can place itself into base contact with another scrap or pyre within 12. So it gets rail walking for pyre markers, which good on a 50 millimeter base. Placing, that's just real good.
Yeah.
Just real good.
And the other thing too is the way that the rules interaction works with Path of Iron, the ability that goes right above it. If it starts its activation with enough burning, it can just drop a pyre marker in base contact with it when it declares the walk, so that it can just rail walk even if it doesn't have a node to jump off of.
Yeah.
At the start of its move, which is bananas. It's so good.
It's got an attack with blast that give burning out, and I love that. I mean, it is a projectile, so there's a little bit of frustration on it, but it's got on your heels. So this thing is super, super mobile, which kind of like with Cedra, where you're looking at Cedra and going, man, I really think that this this complements the Blessed so well. He complements Carlos in having that super mobile character that I'm wondering what's going to be pulled out. Is the Fire Golem just because the Fire Golem kind of plays with it, so I don't know if you take the Fire Golem out or you take Carlos, or if he replaces Carlos.
That's probably going to be.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say that's probably going to be deployment and strats. I know you could say that to everything, but he can keep up with your faster models like Carlos if you need to swing to a far corner to swing things. Whereas I think the Fire Golem's got a little bit of leap, but you always try to keep him pretty central. So I think he's super flexible. And the Searing Heat to just do the extra +1 damage on burning when you have an 8-inch aura on a size 3 model. That's just basically everything that's on fire is taking twice as much. Well, not twice as much, but if you're only pinging them, taking the extra damage is a big deal.
Yeah. And it adds a couple of new sort of build avenues for Mei Feng. I don't really play I don't play Arcanists really or Karis, but I do play a lot of Mei Feng. So I look at this in Foundry and I'm like, whew, man, the games that you can't really afford to take the Metal Golem are becoming more and more frequent just because it's very, very easy to kill for anybody that has any amount of armor piercing tech. Now, this guy still suffers from the same, armor piercing issue, but it does have a few more wounds and it does have a more reliable way to heal itself. Plus, Mei 2 in particular really can kind of put out a lot of burning. So Searing Heat being able to just throw out more damage on top of the burning that she's putting out and Kang is putting out. I mean, there's a real threat there. So I can definitely see utilizing this thing in Mei 2 and maybe even Mei 1. I'd have to put a little bit more thought in that to see how I could make it work. But yeah, it's pretty solid. And I don't think it's an always higher, but it looks freaking amazing. And there's enough situations that I can think to bring it that, I can see it.
I think it's
totally.
Cool. All right. So that's what I got to say.
Go. Yeah. So Kylie, that goes on to you. What's your pick?
All right. So my pick is Irina Keen.
Nice.
She's the versatile / syndicate model. Pretty good. Weird has kind of gotten rid of their if you have defensive tech, you have to have less wounds rule. It seems to be very selective now. So I always like to see if somebody has the same amount of wounds as their cost and has anything that's reduction. So armor 1 on her is pretty good. I like anything that's living and construct because when you're, especially on a versatile model, if you're splashing her into places, there's probably going to be something that one of your models can do because she's not just one thing. Don't mind me. I mean, what do you have to say about that? I know Arcanists have plenty of it, but taking it, most of it's on models that don't want to be anywhere near a person they're interacting around. So don't mind me as a one moment gotcha and then there's just a corpse marker there that's still laughing. She can, with armor 1 and 8 wounds, like you can send her in and she can don't mind me and do something useful and then stay around for like to do it again. With all Syndicate, price of progress is a pretty big deal, and on a bit of a tankier model, you're less worried using it. And unimpeded is nice. Like speed 5 isn't super fast, but there's always a part of the board you need somebody to get through, and she can do it pretty good. I can't tell with the art if she's got like spider legs or it kind of looks like it on the card. It's hard to tell, but
yeah.
Anyways, just more spider legs for people to paint in Arcanist is always fun.
No, Weird needs. I love you, Weird. I love you, Weird. Kyle, I know you're listening. Stop it with the spider legs. Stop it. They break. They're obnoxious. They never fit on the base. Stop it. It's okay.
Those little tiny contact points are great too. They never fall off the bases ever.
I mean,
you gotta be careful with that, or all the Arcanist models are gonna come looking like that Wild Wild West movie. You'll have like an inch thick spider legs.
Look. I survived the brass arachnid in second edition with Ramos. Like the best conversion I've ever seen is someone put it like a pipe and had it like coming out of the pipe. So like all you saw was like the head and like the legs were like sticking out of the pipe. And I was like, no, that's the only way to do this model because it didn't fit on the base at all. And like all it was just like the only contact point was just spider legs. And I was just like, I'm over this. I was over this then. Like when we got to Nexus, I was really freaking over it. Like no more spider legs, none.
Well,
I gave up on the brass arachnid, and I just bought the first edition metal one and used that instead.
Yeah. Well, regardless of what her legs are like, I did forget. Ironically, her rule forgettable. That wasn't even planned. Which is a better version of what her brothers got, where it's in this one, if she's not yet taken damage from an enemy action, you're at negatives to hit her. That works really well with being unimpeded because you could run into concealing terrain without worrying about things. And her bonus action she has is ambush, so that even gets you a little boost to get out of it. So I think you're going to see her skittering or walking, who knows, into some dense forest and into concealing, and then just kind of popping out to do her thing. Her machete claws are pretty good. A 2-inch range with on a model that has Don't Mind Me means that she is going to decide when interact actions are happening. So that's a pretty cool thing to have. And stat 6 is pretty good. You'd want that on a 8-cost model, but you never know. This book is littered with some stat 5s in questionable places.
There's one stat 6 in a questionable place that we might get to when we get to another model, but we'll see if it comes up. I'm grumpy about it. Anyway.
And her machete, she can remove terrain markers within 1 to get a positive. So she's got marker removal, which can be useful. And I mean, anything is remove marker plus gain bonus is nice because you never want to do a full action just to remove a marker. But her big thing that why she's in my pick is she can pick her suits because she's got price of progress. And cleaning up loose ends means that she can ignore hard to kill or demise abilities. To my knowledge, Arcanists do not have much, if any, anti-demise that I'm thinking of off the top of my head.
I don't think so.
No, I don't think so.
So, I mean, hard to kill is, it's great. Usually you've got a plan around that, but like demises are a big deal. I've been playing a lot of Yan Lo lately, and all my opponents that are demise heavy have really been hating it just because you're bringing it on at least 2 models. I don't know that you're using Dazzling Flourish much to do the slow. Not an Accident is kind of good for, again, marker removal if you use the suit and you're doing it in pulsing damage. So I think she brings a fair bit of utility. She's not super fast, but she's not too slow, really. And like you can use her, I think she can change gears. Like you can send her in to murder something, or she could just sit at a mailbox covered around, like surrounded by people, holding them back at 2 inches while still interacting with the box multiple times. So yeah, I think I love that she's versatile because I think once people get the hang of her, you're going to see her in a lot of crews you're not expecting her. The 8 cost is a little bit rough, but that's kind of a theme of this book. Is there's a lot of very expensive models that we're learning to kind of build a list from the top down instead of the bottom up because we all have these keywords. And now the answer is always, what do I get rid of I'm used to? Whereas I think for new players, they're like, oh, this is great. 8 stones, that's a great model. And we're like, no, then I don't take this other model I use all the time.
Oh, I was thinking, what do you think comparing her to Howard Langston? because like that's the clear, like to me that's like the clear like comparison model here, with similar attacks, similar number of attacks, like armor, spider legs, like
I think I think he's kind of murder +1, and she's more scheme +1. Like I think like if you send Howard against something, it's probably not there, but that's what you bring him for. And like Arcanists do have a lot of good schemers and particular keywords, but I think it's the flexibility. I think if you have a straightforward plan, Howard may win out in that one because you're like, no, I want to go eat somebody's face. But I think if you're like, I want somebody that can cover 2 or 3 like bases, I think that she leaks forward just a little bit for me.
okay.
But I always had the worst luck with Howard. He always died too easy for me.
Defense 4 is so rough. But
Yeah.
he's another one that has armor, has Grid Executioner, and is a 10 Soulstone model with 10 wounds, and terrifying, and yet he still dies.
Yeah.
I think the forgettable and using concealing terrain will keep her around a little longer. But yeah, it's just one of those things that if you have a model that isn't tanky, which is most of the crew and most crews, you always have to think like, okay, what will this do, and how do I keep it alive, or do I get enough out of it before it dies?
Mm-hmm.
Because she doesn't have any heals built in or anything, so she can't support herself if she starts going down.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that's important with her is that like she is a threat, but she's probably not the number one threat on the table. And she's a schemer, but she's kind of a schemer, but she's also not going to be the number one schemer. So I think that she's a model that's going to tend to stick around because it'll be very difficult to make her a priority target. Which also I think is one of the things that's, you said, probably don't use Dazzling Flourish too much for a slow. But the fact that she has a stat 6 on willpower, granted it's only a 6-inch range, that has execute on a trigger on a model with Price of Progress, that's a construct and is in the Arcanist faction, which is loaded with healers. Like, you've got December Acolytes that get taken out of keyword. It can heal from half a board away. You've got 2 masters that support constructs specifically and do things like give them fast, move them up the board, give them lots of heals. This is a model that like I can theoretically see you Price of progressing 3 times during its activation, which is a lot of damage, but like the faction kind of has the means to support that. Yeah. So she's pretty gnarly.
And actually, you mentioned the Dazzling Flourish, and as a Brewmaster fan, being able to put somebody at a 2-inch melee and then slowing them, if your whole goal is just trying to stop something from happening, it may not be the best activation, but if you're there, that you're right, that there'll probably be times that it's useful. I just think like her attack actions action or other one have like multiple uses at the same time. So just doing one like condition on one model would be situational, but it's nice to have.
Yeah. It's really all about picking out the times that the execute is going to break a game, because she's going to stick around to the point that like you don't really have to activate her early. Like, she's a model you can really afford to push off until later in the turn. And then if you see that moment when your opponent has 1 card in hand and no stones left, and you're like, I can just push through 2 executes on you and your model's dead and there's nothing you can do about it. That's pretty gross.
And the nice thing too is that the fact that she has Price of Progress means that she doesn't need the upgrade to use Soul Stones.
Yeah.
But I was just looking, and I think Diesel Engine is a really good upgrade for her.
Oh yeah.
It'll give her double negatives on some attacks. Like, it'll make it near, like if you put Sputtering Exhaust on her, right, and she's got Forgettable, like you're gonna spend a lot of effort trying to target her.
Yep.
And then
it'll give her charge through on her 2/4/5,
which she gets a +4 if she can remove a marker. So it's like a free
she
focus
doesn't
on
need the
charge.
focus. Yeah, she doesn't need focus. So like, I don't hate Diesel Engine on her at all.
No, not at all. Not at all. All right. So I guess that should do it for Arcanists. Let's move on to the best faction.
Yeah.
The Bayou. So Kylie, you get first pick in Bayou. What you got? Do your worst.
Oof. All right. I knew this was going to happen. So I'm a pretty big Bayou player. I went through some love-hate with this guy, especially during playtesting, and like I've settled pretty happy, but I think it's going to be Houdini.
Ooh,
Oh,
interesting.
nice.
Yes.
That was my pick. You beat me
Was
to
he?
it.
Was that your first?
Oh yeah,
Oh, okay.
it
Well, at
was.
least I know I'm not crazy then.
Was that your
Um,
pissy about being at defense 5 or about stat 5 as well?
No, without going on a rant and giving anything on an NDA, its base size was a problem. That's the only thing. Yeah, I just don't like that. Like big bases, both Wong and Brewmaster have a lot of auras and line of sight issues and tripping over themselves. So when I saw that there's going to be this cute little wizard that threw fireballs, I was excited. When I saw it was a 50 mil base, I was like, but, but why? Like, but anyways, I digress. I think tripping over yourself, especially if you play enough models like Wong, actually has a surprising amount of large bases.
Yeah.
And Brewmaster, his aura is so important. Once you start getting large size bases that can actually block that, I've had my opponents get real smart about taking my poison away by just using my own models blocking my aura. To the point that I actually take two Gremlins and a Ghillie suit on Brewmaster a lot, just so I could get the extra size because it's such an important aura that if people can stop it. Anyways, enough about what he doesn't do. It's so he's pretty good. He's got more wounds than cost. Average stats, except for 6 willpower, which is good. He has butterfly jump, which can be nice. It could also be hard on a 50 mil base, but there I go again. Evasive is very good, especially if you have him in Wong. He can't take any damage from blasts or pulse effects. He does have magical influence, which is good. Not all the whiz bang stuff has it. I should mention again, he's whiz bang tri chi is his combination. So he can get the built-in suits if you get the glowy tokens on him. His unique thing with his glowy tokens is it's called Total Power, Toad Owl Power, obviously, because puns. Once per activation, when you take an action, if you discard a glowy token, you get an extra 4-inch range, which is super cool. If you go to flip to the back of the card immediately, no, he does not have a melee. So the instant question everybody gets immediately is, no, he doesn't have one, so that won't work. And he has worked the stage. Whenever he'd suffered damage from poison, he gains glowy. That does mean in like Brewmaster 2, you're usually triggering the poison to get the pushes. So you could probably get 2 glowy on him a turn without any real effort. The Eldritch Blast attack, aside from being a little bit weaker stats, is, in my opinion, almost as good as Breath of Fire, but with extra toys. Because it's only a 1/3/3, but it's 1 blast, 3 double blast, 3 double blast. And you get poison too, and with a blaze trigger, which you can use a glowy token for, you also gain burning. So you can stack with double templates across a model. You can hit 3 or 4 people, get 3 damage, and then put burning and poison. That's basically getting 5 damage if they don't clear the stuff off. So yeah, he's got the blaze trigger, Hypno Toad, which of course they have to put that in somewhere, so I'm glad they did. Target gains distracted, is pushed up to 2 inches. You just want to say it. Everybody gets to like say all hail the Hypno Toad when you get it. And the trap door is kind of cute. You get to place the target within 4. I did manage to throw a peacekeeper back into a guild crew where there's a wall and had already activated, and I just blocked his whole crew. He was not a big fan of that. That's because I was able to spend the glowy to get the extra range, because if it's an 8-inch range on this, which isn't great, but if you got the glowy, it's a 12-inch, which is very respectable, and there's no gun icon, so it's just 8-inch range. It is stat 5 versus defense, though, so you can't guarantee this is going to go off, but thankfully with all the blasts, you just pick the easiest target and try to just basically spray and pray poison and fire and whatever else his normal thing is. So like the attack itself, I think in like getting poison at range is a big deal for Brewmaster. He doesn't have a lot of ways to do it without models using like the gammon and stuff, and you don't want to be using that on enemies because you're trying to build it on yourself. So I like that this guy solo can start spreading that poison out, especially Brewmaster 1 if he wants to run in. Usually the opponents don't have any poison and you're stoning for your for your splash triggers, which always feels bad because you're like, I need to get poison out or I'm dead. I need a volunteer as his tactical action. It's good support. It's 6 inches, and you can push once per turn. You push towards a model's base contact, and it either heals one or ends a condition, which is decent. And then you have extra sparkly. There we go. We got sparkly in. Target gains a glowy token. Hey, it worked. Where a target heals another 1, 2, 3. So that would be basically a 2, 3, 4 heal. So that's pretty solid if you include the first heal. And then spiked coffee, where you get focused and poison. That'll always be funny because there's going to be people you want to give focus to that you don't want to poison, and some of your guys who like poison don't like focus. So in Brewmaster, so that's kind of a funny, weird synergy that you're going to have to pick and choose from.
Right, because you don't want to give that to like Brew 2 because he doesn't want focus.
Or the monks, if you ever for some reason accidentally tripped and put a monk on the table, not the fermented, what are the ninjas?
The shinobis, moon shinobis.
Yes, the moon shinobis. Yeah, see, I don't even know the name of them. I love them so much, and I can't remember the last time I put them on the table.
They need
and then he's just got his bonus action, prestidigitation. There we go. We'll just watch your people try to say, or your opponent try to say that. And it's your basic shockwave that shockwave 2, willpower 13 for just distracted 1. You can target it off of Hopscotch, which is the big frog. That's the other model that's in the crew. And if you do that, the target number is increased by +2. Then there's 2 triggers. You can push out poison for people who fail, or you can give yourself a glowy token, and that's built in. So if you're triggering poison on him twice and he's using that action, which is his bonus, so there's no reason not to, he'll be getting 3 glowy himself a turn. So outside of Wong, he's still generating the glowy tokens, so that's good to see. I think he just puts out, like, in general, like in a Wong crew, you're not worried about range damage, but Brewmaster doesn't really have any range threat. And as a Brewmaster player, you watch your opponent do whatever he wants for turn 1 and half of turn 2, because he's whatever, you're not getting to me. Being able to like poison, use Brew 2 to push this guy up, give him a couple glowy, and he gets the extra range. Suddenly you're facing like Wong because you're getting a bunch of blasts inside crews that didn't think they had to spread out. So I think it just adds a bit of a different play style. The support heals and stuff are nice, but in Brewmaster, you don't really need them. In Wong, it might be nice to be able to give out like some extra heals, like specifically like Alphons or something, when you want like single target big heals.
Yeah, I think one of the secret sauces on this guy is the fact that spiked coffee trigger, being able to do a heal for 1, move Hooch Dini at the same time, and give out focus, all at the cost of giving out a poison. Like, kind of who cares most of the time. And in Brewmaster, it's a good thing, and in Wong, it's not really a big deal. Yeah. But being able to give focus to Alphonse outside of his activation is huge, because that dude fucking slams.
Yeah.
And it's just another way to put focus onto Brewmaster 1 before he activates, which is like kind of a big deal. Yeah. Very, very, very strong model.
I was misplaying the I need a volunteer at first. I thought the push the model into base contact was also a cost in italics.
Oh.
So the amount of times I said I can't use this action on anybody because I've got stuff in the way.
As long as it's within 6 inches, you don't have to get there.
So as far as I know, you could push as much towards it or as little, because that's just part of it. You can say no thank you, or you can move up an inch and bump into whatever's in your way. 50 mil base.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, this is going to be such a great model. Oh my god!
Looks phenomenal.
Like
they had it at last Gen Con, I think. They had the model, and everybody was just like, "What is that?" And I was like, "I'm sure I don't know."
Yeah, this is just absolutely fantastic. Everything about this model, like from the frog skeleton on the hat to his like monocle, like all of it.
Oh yeah, he looks like a silent movie villain that just tied someone to railroad tracks. Like, he's just amazing. It's just gonna be, as long as those mustaches aren't individual pieces we got to glue on, I'm good.
Absolutely. I love this guy.
Yeah. I mean, really fantastic model. I think I don't really see it being played really outside of those two keywords that much, but it does add a lot of flexibility to both of them for sure. Good stuff. Good
Well,
pick.
and I don't play Wong too much, but I'm sure if you can get that bonus action to work and get those blasts doing extra damage as well,
Mm-hmm.
that could stack pretty
Yeah.
scary. I'd have to put him on the table though. I don't do a lot of Wong 2 yet. He's on my shelf of try to unlock.
I can't
So
figure out Wong. He just doesn't work for me.
I like both versions quite a lot, but there we go. So Maeve, what do you got for your pick?
I'm not going to pick the best yet again. There is I think there is a absolute best model in Bayou, but I'm not
All right.
going to pick it. Instead, I'm going to pick my favorite because I've been waiting for them for forever, and that is the Swashbucklers.
I knew you were gonna say Swashbucklers.
Swashbucklers are
Yeah.
so cool.
All right.
Swashbucklers are so cool. We don't have combat finesse in Bayou, so having combat finesse is pretty cool. They don't really have any other like defense except for their walk the plank to gain you distracted, which is not really a defensive ability. But I think that the keyword has so much. Both keywords have so much ability to like push them into melee that I think that they should be okay. I'm not really worried about them like getting killed too often, unless you're like playing against Dita and you're just gonna get gunned down, in which case maybe don't play these guys. But they make Zip 2 start to work a lot better. Like I think he was already good, but they make him work like so much better all of a sudden because like his monologue ability where you ditch a card to give people distracted. Now you've got Zip plus these two guys that are going to be swinging at people who will have a negative to resist as long as they have distracted. And like it's a 2-4-5 damage track that either draws cards or hands out slow, which neither of those options are bad, right? Like they have free loot, which is of course really good, especially in GG4. It's very very good. I just love these little guys. Like they're absolutely fun. Everything about them is just like perfect Zip ridiculousness. Um, and even in Angler, I think that because they, like I said, because Angler just has such a good ability to like get models where you need them to go, and has the cards to like make them suddenly work. You know, like you always have the cards to be able to get these attacks. That 2-4-5 damage flip on a minion is suddenly going to be really really nasty.
Yeah, that was one of the things that really stood out to me was the 2-4-5 damage track on an attack that can also make your opponent be on a negative to resist it on a 6-tone model.
Yeah.
I will say that having played a lot of models with combat finesse, because I have this unreasonable love interest with Woku Raiders and Misaki, it doesn't seem to save my bacon as much as I would think it would, but I keep playing them anyway. I think that's the only... Go ahead.
At Captain Con, I played a random Karai 2 list where I dropped 3 drowned just because I thought I knew what I was going to do. And you know what? Especially, there's 3 of them on the table, but the amount of times that people go in and they're like, all right, well, I'm just going to cheat this. Be like, you can't. You just missed on my random minion.
Yep.
And
on
there's
a
6
cheap model
too.
like this, it's value for sure. On a more expensive model that you're really relying on it as defensive tech, not so great.
Too.
But
yeah. Also, this is the first model where I've seen Biting Insult, and I've been like, I actually kind of like the idea of like using
it's
Biting
great on
Insult
them
here, especially because like you can
sure.
move markers, which is really good, and you can drop piano markers, which we all know like having big impassable blocking markers is pretty good and helps set up their survivability. These guys are fun. Like I said, they're not the like top most like best model coming out, but I love them.
I think one big thing is their boarding action where they get to push whenever terrain markers are dropped. I was thinking in Zip, I'm like, oh, okay, if you put down a piano, they get to push, which is nice. If you're pairing them up with in Zip with an Iron Skeeter, which is kind of a great combo because you give them concealment and backup. well, you could drop a piano and then they get to push that 4, and then the Skeeter gets to walk up, then fly with me, and then keep going. And usually the problem with the fly with me tech is that you have to activate the model first to get them up to a point that it's not just a 4-inch place. I think it's 4. But I played them I tried them out in my angler cruise, and realizing that tide pool markers or terrain markers, the amount of times that you drop is every time you activate. So these guys, if they're not getting killed, they are ping-ponging all over the place. Because almost every model you have has a way to drop or move a marker, which then gets like placed down. And they have the hermits, which can keep them alive. Because take the hit in case they are going to be allowed to attack you with something, and they got a big hand. You're like, all right, well, I'll have my little crab guy keep them alive.
Yep, I like them.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, especially in this gaining grounds, there's like a floor to how bad a model can be if it's got the ability to get a ton of out of activation moves plus unimpeded and free loot as a bonus action. Like,
yeah,
it's pretty awesome. Pretty awesome.
And like these guys, you can throw 12 cups on them and they become even more obnoxious. Like,
I like that.
Yeah, like I think they're really good.
I like that a lot. All right. Well, I guess it comes to me, and surprisingly, 2 of my 3 models didn't get chosen. I did get the Houdini stolen out from under me, but this is tough. All right. All right, I'm going to go with my weird pick. I'm going to go with the Hog Oil Salesman.
Interesting.
This model is so good for especially Ulix. I mean, there's some play within Kin as well, but I feel like the additional durability that this model is going to bring, especially to the Ulix crew, is going to be kind of a make or break for them. I will say that the stat 4s are rough, especially because it doesn't have bigger they are. It does have flinch from Kin, so it's going to get shielded most of the time. So that 7 wounds is actually going to go pretty far. But I mean, one of the problems with what do you call it, with Ulix is that you've got all these big beefy models and you've got heals, but it still is often very difficult to keep them alive. The fact that you can give out shielded when you also do the heals within a big aura off of like a big 50 mil base is pretty slick, especially for Ulix, because it's gonna let you do stuff like Reckless with your War Pigs and not actually take damage. Reckless with your what you call it, the other guys there,
Swine Curse,
Wild Boars,
yeah,
Wild Boars. Yep, same thing without taking damage. And then there's a lot of just kind of like incidental healing that you can sort of pulse out in a Kin keyword and stack the shielded. I don't think it's going to be as impactful there. I don't really see a lot of stuff that screams I need to take this with Kin, but I see a whole lot of reasons to take it with Ulix.
Yeah.
The things that really stand out to me in particular are the fact that it's another model with a min 1 damage that can use Stickum. So you can just use any mask on these guys to just make another pig take an action.
Well, they have ramming speed,
which has
too,
always
so
been
ramming speed means they don't even need the mask.
They always get it built in. Yeah, exactly. That's true. They always get it built in, which is fantastic. And then they can like do cheeky pulses of damage with collision if they do have to get into the mix with an enemy model. You can theoretically do a pretty decent amount of damage with that. But the I Need a Volunteer is such a good ability. Like, such a good ability. Also, weird, let me just put this out there. Thank you very much for making tactical actions that have restrictions that say other model only on them. There's been 2 of them that we've already talked about so far during this podcast, and it's not something you see that often. So thanks for making sure that we can't use this on the model that's using the ability. But yeah, so like you use I Need a Volunteer, you get a push into base contact, which is pretty awesome. The 50 mil base can make things a little tricky sometimes, but you know, we've talked about that with the Houdini as well. Incidentally, this is like basically the same ability that Houdini has, which is kind of funny. But so you heal 1, end a condition and then give out shielded or give out another heal or give out fast and burning, like, man, I don't know. I see a lot of play with this guy, and just the fact that it has something on what you only need like a 6 tome for to give out fast in an Ophelia crew, like, I can see that. I can see taking it. Yeah, I kind of like it. So am I totally off base with my pick?
No, I think it's good. I was thinking Bo Peep really like turns it on too with that shielded.
Yeah,
Like,
that's what I was going to say. I never play a kin game without Bo Peep. I mean, this is another 7 model to attach, but the two of them together plus flinch means that if you don't ignore shielded, then there's some very shiny gremlins walking around, because you can stack a lot of shielding real quick in that.
Yeah.
Now, if only Bo Peep were a pig so that you could use Stickum.
Sales pitch is interesting too.
She might be a beast. I'm sorry. It's beast, not pig. I'm mixing things up.
Yeah.
Sales pitch, I hate that ability. I've used Huckster so many times, and it has never done me right, ever, even a single time, but I still use it every single time.
If it was not a non-Bayou model, I would have a problem with it. But if you're playing Bayou, there's some jank that you're just going to do for fun. You don't expect this to work. You just go, it's a bonus action. I'm going to do it. Like,
and also, like, Bayou doesn't have a lot of access to adding soulstones. So even if you lose the flip, adding soulstones is a thing that Bayou doesn't do.
Yep.
Now, I don't think Ulix doesn't care as much about soulstones as other crews do. So,
Ulix 2 does.
Ulix 2 for sure, but
and, I mean, you're probably going to dump a ton of soulstones into Old Major. So,
yeah, that's true.
If he dies, he dies.
If he dies, he dies.
I've gotten to the point where both
there's our first spicy take.
Both Old Major.
If Old Major dies, he's gone.
Both Old Major and Whiskey Golem for me are these models that just kind of like, you put them where they're going to go, you set them out a job, and if they live past turn 3, congrats, you've managed. Like, you won a mini game in the, like, very, very rarely do either of those models make it past turn 3 because there's such a threat on the board. And sometimes you have to, like, distraction Carnifex them up, knowing like they're going to be an issue. But if they can accomplish their job before they get there, you can pull it off. But like, I don't know. Like, I know like obviously for Old Major, he's like the glue that makes the that makes the keyword sort of work a lot of times. But I just I every once in a while you just have to go, you know what, if he doesn't
make it, at least they have to put some resources into it.
And so then like so unfortunately with Old Major, he's the only one that you can't turn into a war pig. Like,
because he's already the best pig.
Too bad, so sad. Too bad, so sad.
Yeah.
He already has a medal to prove he's the best pig, so he doesn't turn into other ones.
Yep.
Yeah, but I mean, it would be hilarious if because nothing's better than people getting the sow down to like 1 wound, and you're like, surprise, war pig, eat it.
Yeah. I'm all done giving birth. I'm now going to start eating things.
Yeah, right. But I think you're spot on with the Hoggle salesman. It's a fun guy to have around. Ulix crews are loaded with support models though, so like what you take out for where you're going to put it in is kind of a
points get a little sketchy for sure. All right, so we're going to move on to Explorers. It is my pick, and for anybody who's listened to me talk about my Explorers favorites at any length, you can probably figure out which one of the keywords this is going to land in. I'm going to go with Host Ducat. This model is unfrickin' believable. Absolutely unbelievable. It's a model that is, I think, probably just 100% always take in any Ivan crew of any sort. And there's enough tech on this model that I can absolutely see taking it out of keyword as well. It's absolutely fantastic. I'll finally be able to play with a model that has Forever Doomed, so I can do the hanged bullshit like Kylie did to me during the Ringer game at Captain Con.
In my defense, there's only 3 jokers that screwed you in 1 turn, and I don't even know how that happened.
Tell me about it. I failed kill shots on the same hanged twice in a row because I flipped a red Joker damage and it turned into a black Joker. Twice in a row.
Yeah, I forget which
Ridiculous.
order. I think you red Joker to hit, which meant it missed, and then you cheated in a high card, and then you flipped the red Joker for damage, so it did 0 damage.
I don't know what it was. It was ridiculous. It was ridiculous. Anyway, so I get that now, which is pretty cool. So like you look at the front of Host Ducat's card and you're like, he's not that impressive. 5s across the board, 7 wounds, Incorporeal's good. Looted Supplies is like, it's a good ability, but it's not crazy. Ungentlemanly Affairs from DUA is, solid. Forever Doomed is great. But then you get onto the back of the card, and it's one of those that, like, if you don't have, I think that if you look at the back of the card and you don't really know where the abilities fit into these keywords, it's easy to see the stuff that he does. But the big one, honestly, the really, really big one is the healing energy. So the fact that his healing energy has a built-in tome to drop a shadow marker into base contact with the target is beyond huge for Ivan Cruz, like absolutely beyond huge, because one of the issues with Ivan Cruz is that if you want to use the antiluminal bridge on Gibson to make your Umbra models bounce from one shadow marker to another, it always turned into sort of like an activation order issue because there were very few models that could reliably put out shadow markers. It was you activate Ivan early in the turn before Gibson goes to get a shadow marker down so that you could then use Gibson's ability to make the bridge, or you just hope that you draw into the right card to make a shadow marker with one of your other models because you've got a trigger with it. With this guy, you just make it anytime you want. So now all of a sudden the bridge works, which is fantastic. He can also do stuff like if you have the right card in your hand, you can healing energy on an enemy model, get the built-in lingering shadows to drop a shadow marker in base contact with it, and then Mordrake runs over and buries it in the shadow marker that wasn't there before. Like really, really, really rude shit. And then it has Dark Bargain, which is just like kind of an amazing ability. And in Ivan 2, you can make him do it a second time, so you can get more interacts with a crew that like was very efficient at generating actions to kill stuff, but not really very efficient at generating actions to drop scheme markers.
Yeah, all movement and killing.
Movement and killing, unless you're Corvus, in which case you do have some draw out secrets, but like that's kind of it. This guy's got a draw out secrets on his gun, which you can't stone for, but like whatever. He's got a bonus action to make another model drop a scheme marker. He can heal stuff. He can give out distracted like crazy, which helps enable the Ivan 2 play quite a lot. And then like his Fang-Edged Umbrella, he can just like hit a model, do damage to it, and then put distracted back on himself so that he can hit it again and be on a plus because he's got Ungentlemanly Affairs. And he's got great triggers on it. It's a phenomenal model. And there's enough tech there that I can see taking it outside of those two keywords as well. So that's all I get to say.
So what artifact upgrade goes on this guy if you're playing him in Wastrel?
None. You don't need to put an artifact upgrade on this guy. You need to put an artifact upgrade on the fucking Alleyway Echo that you take along with him in Wastrel.
That is fair. That's fair.
Or if you want to be really, really rude, you take both of these guys and then you second Master McCabe into an Ivan crew so that you can put upgrades onto the Alleyway Echo and then also drop shadow markers that give it fast and bounce it all the way up the board. Yeah, that's pretty rude too.
Gross.
Kylie's shaking his head on the other side of the camera.
Gross.
Yeah.
It's when somebody smiles and starts with, or if you take a second master, and you'll always be like, okay, you'll really mess somebody up by doing that once, but it'll never be in your usual tray, because like that's the one thing with the double master thing, which everybody has their own opinions about, is like you'll get some really cool combos, but whether it can play 5 games in a row and continue to do well, yeah. But that is gross. And I will say, Host Ducat is one of the few incorporeal models that I can think of that has the same health for cost. Yeah. As a Karai player and seeing Jackdaw and a lot of things, that's the favorite to drop your wounds is if you have incorporeal. He's
So, yeah.
he's a little fragile, but I think you would actually see him mixed in the middle of crews too, because he's got like I think his gun is his least impressive thing, and he's not afraid to be swinging around and helping out and healing people in the middle. And so even putting like Flush with Cash on him, if you're ever really worried about a big massive attack, and he might get some stones back by just having things die near him.
Well, see, and that's what I was thinking.
Honestly,
the mirror
having
might
played,
be...
yeah, mirror could help for sure. I would say that for having played Ivan a lot of times, this is like the last model that you're going to be trying to put resources into killing. You're going to be dealing with the Brock inspectors that are going to be being dropped in your face, or Corvus running around your flanks and just murdering all your schemers. And yeah, good stuff.
Yeah.
I like it. So that's my pick. I guess that moves on to Maeve. What is your Explorer's pick?
Oh, I really just think I have to go with the Hand of Janus.
Yeah, you do.
No,
That
we
was my
played
second
this
pick.
for a while.
Well, there goes my first.
and this thing is just, like, holy, like, I know they don't, like, holy cow, this thing is just incredible. I know we've seen it spoiled for quite a while now, but like Armor 4 or Armor 2 with excess funds, like Grit Frantic, like Armor Piercing, Shove Aside, Mutilate. Like, there's not a bad trigger on its attack, which is already like a ball buster of an attack. Like, a stat 6 12-inch non-gun that ignores concealment, and it just happens to heal itself up.
It heals itself and it can remove conditions from
Like,
itself.
Yeah, like
That's what I was thinking of when you said it's like, oh, thanks for a tactical action you won't use on yourself. And I was thinking Hand of Janus. That's basically printed like, why? Can I target other models? No, this just goes on me.
And like,
yeah, and did I mention that you can also play this thing in Ivan, and Gibson can give it fast with burnout, and it only takes 1 damage, and then it just heals itself, and it ignores all the shadow markers that are on the table. Pretty good.
This thing,
pretty good.
This thing in that or in Bygone, where it can do whatever the fuck it wants to do. Like it's just you could put it in Nexus where you don't have as many beaters, and suddenly you've got this big damn thing that they've got to deal with. Like, it's nasty, and it doesn't need a lot of support to be good.
It fills a gap that Explorers have needed filling for a long time, and that they didn't really have a great beater that they could just go out of keyword or versatile for. They had a bunch of other like fast models, tricky models, but they didn't have anything that they could just bring in to punch something down. And this does that.
Now it is a defense 4 size 4, which means literally everything is going to hit it. Like, you're never going to be able to hide this thing. It's always going to take the shots.
The only other tech it's missing too is any like anti-move tech. So like it can get where it's going and it's going to mess you up. But if you've got berries or pushes or anything else, you can try to mitigate it a bit by trying to get him out of there.
Yeah, and it's towering figure too, so it can just walk over everything. Like, this guy's such a monster.
And one of the things is that, like, because it slots into pretty much every crew, Explorer Society is not really a faction that you generally have to worry about taking armor piercing or irreducible damage into. So the armor 2 isn't as much of a liability here as it is in some other factions, like maybe Arcanists.
Right.
Where you pretty much are always going to be in a good.
I guess if you're
spot
facing Maxine, you'd take armor piercing.
Yeah,
even then.
Yeah, I don't really think that Maxine needs this guy, but
I was gonna say I don't think she needs him.
Yeah,
this thing plus Calypso running down the center of the board is just a little much.
I was gonna say, can you imagine in a Maxine 1 where you're basically able to like manipulate your card draw and your hand as much as possible, and then here comes this guy, and he's fully gripped up and ready to go. Like, scary, big scary.
In a faction that has Flush with Cash as an upgrade. So how many times a game do you just want to ditch a bunch of cards and get some new ones without spending stones?
That's it. That's it.
No, I like him. I like him a lot. He is a.
I want to see him in the Emissary side by side doing some buddy cop stuff, because
I don't know that GG4 is where you want to sink 20 points into 2 models, but
I mean,
but
it'd be fun. you kind of do. I wouldn't say competitively. You kind of want to see them have some fun.
Yeah, I mean, like, I guess if you're doing like Cloak and Dagger and you're just gonna be like, okay, this section of the board is mine, fuck off. Like,
Literally too scared to go in that corner of the board,
yeah,
so I'll go
yeah,
the
yeah,
other
yeah.
way.
Yep.
Yeah, okay,
That
so
would
I'll
do
take
it.
these two. Yeah.
All right. So, Kylie, what is your explorer's pick?
All right, mine is probably going to be the weirdest pick of the night for my picks, especially because Hannah Janice was just swiped from me. uh, I'm kind of liking some of the possibilities that Casey Jones is bringing.
Yeah, that was my number 3.
Fuzzy, yeah,
It was.
yeah, he's. It took me a little while to read over his card to be like, I don't understand what he's supposed to be doing, but the more you sit with it, I think the more like opportunities start to kind of like pop out. He's Seeker Syndicate. Armor 1, 9 wounds, 9 health. So again, decent. And defense 5, willpower 6. So his stats aren't bad. Like that's, you can rely on that being a little above average. His Chronicle, because he's a Jets of Stan. Anytime, once per activation, when a model within 6 heals, you get to push a scheme marker within range up to 2 inches towards the heal model. That will be able to do some anti-scheming in like later turns. But I was also thinking you can just pop out some scheme markers of your own behind your models in the early turns, and as you walk up and keep healing, you just keep pulling them up with you. So you're like trailing scheme markers behind you for when you need them. I don't know how AP efficient that is, but it could be kind of cute. Constant motion confuses me just a little bit. Whenever he takes a model with that declares a trigger, he gets to push 2 inches. After resolving, but before any of the additional actions generated by the trigger. So they're very specific when you get your 2 inch push. And then I looked at this card for about 20 minutes to see Incorporeal, and it's not there because he kind of looks like a ghost train. I don't know. Like he's gonna a lot of the times not get much of those pushes. Like sometimes it's gonna be great, like and you can push out of things and stuff. But this idea of like it's called constant motion, where you think it's like this forward momentum, and I think a lot of the times it's gonna be charge and do stuff and declare trigger, pull back to the side or something.
I think that the big thing with him is that he has constant motion and he also has a 2-inch engage. So if he's
punch.
Being engaged by something, you can punch and then push back out of engagement, but keep them at 2, depending on how you angle your push.
And you even have a delay trigger on his attack to slow the person, so you can push back, punch them, slow them, and they're at that lovely 2 inches in slow.
Yep, and then like before any other actions are generated by this trigger thing, like that doesn't have any implication to him, I think, at all. It's just because that's the same ability that's on Mayfang 1, so it has to read the same way.
Yeah.
But
the thing that really interested me was the failsafe. So friendly Seeker and Syndicate models are unaffected by geode markers within 12 of this model, and ignore them when moving or drawing line of sight. If you played against a good Seeker player, they could really make those geode markers block up your like lanes and like seal your models in and stuff. But then you see even the best Seeker player will gum up their own models because later they actually want to get past that spot. And the fact that he has trouble ahead where he can create it with a trigger once per turn to create another one. These little geode markers can very much be like Seamus coffin markers when people played them the old way, where you just go up and say, here's a hallway, and I'm going to put a little geode marker there. Now you're not getting past that, but if I want to later, I can walk right through it. In positioning, especially some of this GG, where it's very important to get exactly within an inch of places and stuff. Using your ways to block off lanes and stuff is very useful. And I think he's one of those great models that we're designed that said, oh, you have a mechanic that's also screwing your own crew over. What if we give you a model that can just take that away? So him being able to produce them while helping your models ignore them, I think there's going to be some really great plays that people can really like stop a charge from a model or seal in someone who's trying to get away and then not pay for it later as long as he's still on the board.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and being able to litter the table with those geodes, that if you're playing Seeker and you want to use Yedza so that you can just start using her, target off of terrain ability, gets pretty gnarly. The other thing too is that like geodes are always a create; they're never a drop, so you can never put them into base contact with anybody. But you can use the tome trigger on Trouble Ahead to create the geode marker, but then just push it right into a model, which is
Yeah.
pretty slick. Pretty
That
slick.
also helps too because it's only a 4-inch range for the initial create for the marker, so it's pretty close. So being able to drop one and then, because you can only create 2 once anyways, if that's really what your plan is, you can at least kick the one a little bit further.
I do really like the whippoorwill whistle, his bonus action as well. Giving out adversary is also really good on TN13, which like nobody wants to like cheat a card to avoid adversary. So that's going to come into play. But he has Price of Progress with Sudden Strike. Like,
Yeah.
he's always going to get at least 2 swings a turn. Like, that's really good.
That's that kind of that magic number for like the 9 cost models that you're always looking for is, are you doing 3 actions and a bonus? Because then I'm pretty happy. And again, being Syndicate in this book, I think they did really well because these models that are a little bit tankier and that can take a bit more of a hit, that can use the Price of Progress without immediately getting just deleted off the board for doing so. I think these are going to be really strong in those keywords.
Yeah, the thing that made this model stand out the most to me was that it, like, Seeker's always kind of had a lot of variety in crew building because they have a lot of really great models to pull from, but Syndicate hasn't really. Like, their hiring pool is very small, and there's not many ways that you can make a workable Syndicate crew. I think that this model gives you a whole different way that you can choose to play the keyword that just didn't really work for them before. Yeah.
Yeah, and also, a beautiful model too.
Yeah, this model, I can't wait to see what this is actually going to look like. Like, logistically, this model is either going to look absolutely awful or it's going to be amazing.
Or Terra
it's going to be nightmare fuel one way or the other because it's just a man in a train just got blended together and then just fired out of a cannon.
Which is why he's not incorporeal, right? Because he's got literal parts of the train attached.
Yeah, he just is. The parts that aren't train are very ghost, so, you know. But... yeah.
True story. So that should about do it. Let's move on to Guild, and Kylie gets first pick. So I think I have an idea what you might go with, but we'll see.
I guess it's gonna rhyme with Night Silk. Funny story at Captain Con, I got the first draw for the ballots. And I said to my friend, I'm like, I've been wanting to play Journalist forever. I don't play Guild. That's the one weakness. I just love the idea of reporters so much. And they had the Night Silk box there. And I was just like, oh man, if that's still there, which it won't be when my name is called, I'm going to grab it and I'm going to start playing Guild. And I got the first pick. So the Guild gods have spoken. I'm not saying I'm going to do it right away. I have way too many other crews on the go, but I am super excited. This guy was a shot of sunshine into the arms for a lot of my Guild friends. It just answers the how do I get over there question, like just right out the gate. Being able to create, like, because it's him and the camera bots, obviously. You can't talk about one without the other. Even if the camera bots didn't exist, he would be almost a good model just for, like, he couldn't at 8 cost, you'd never be able to do it, but because he's move 6, expert getaway, so he gets to ignore terrain and models while moving, extended reach, which is lovely when you can get it, and stealth. So, like, even if you were just running this guy up the side, if he was like 6 or 7 stones and not as many wounds, you'd almost just take him in Guild as just a great flanker on the side. You'd be like, oh, this is going to take a lot for people to kill him. I'm going to run off and do stuff. He has the chasing his story for because he likes Nelly. So when an enemy model with an 8 resolves interact, he gains focus. I don't know that you're swinging with him a lot, but that's always not bad to have, even if you're using it defensively. A big thing he has is his spy network, which is what kind of turns this card upside down and lights it on fire for being ridiculous. This model may draw range and line of sight for its actions and aura abilities from friendly camera bots. This takes 2 or 3 read-throughs until you really piece together how many things that's actually talking about. So yes, he can interact outside of the bots. That's the first thing you think. You can summon these bots. They have from the shadows. You can put them wherever you're going to go and be like, "Yay, I get to interact." But his auras, such as extended reach, also radiate out of these. So each of these little camera bots stops charge attacks within 2 of themselves, which is pretty great since you can summon them around stuff you want them to be. And his chasing a story also works, which means if things interact within 8 of the camera bots, he gets focus. And that one was the last time I read through the card today that I realized it was the one aura I hadn't clued into that actually layers. So your camera bots are forcing models to interact. And if it's an enemy model, you're getting focus from 36 inches away, standing behind a building.
Yeah.
He's awesome. The network cable attack is a stat 6, which might be the one we were going to talk about not needing to be a stat 6. No, it's a different model.
No, it's a different model.
Okay, this is the one where I'm like, I don't understand why he's. Well, I mean, he's very accurate with his cables. I guess it's worth the overhang the model's going to have on that base. If the action draws range and line of sight from the camera bots, because you can do so, you get to add the mask to its final duel total. So you get a built-in slander trigger that gives the target distracted, and if the target's within 2 of a ski marker, it suffers +1 damage. So his damage is only 134, so it's not impressive. But if the target, if you get that out of the camera bots, it becomes a 245 because just cable whipping through a camera just, I guess, sucks to have happened to you.
Evidently, yeah.
Especially with all the focus he just happens to be sitting on for no reason.
No reason. Oh my god. Yeah.
Boy. Yeah. So let's the tactical actions, because you're not bringing him for his attack. You have walk the line, where a friendly model gets to push up to 6 inches towards a ski marker or corpse, or scrap as well. Sorry, within 6 in line of sight. If it has below half of its maximum health, this model may draw a card. So you do some unpacks. Well, I guess not unpacks. Hopefully, none of your stuff is at half its wounds or less in the unpack phase. But and then you have a catch a glimpse, where you look at the top 2 cards of your fate deck and place them back in the same order as a trigger. It never hurts. You never really stone for it or plan for it or really get excited about it, but it's always nice to have information. So he can at least push people around. That's got an 8-inch range. Only needs a 6. So if there's ski markers or corpse markers around or scraps, usually there's one of some of them, he's going to be able to push people around. I didn't mention he's also a guard model. So if you're playing guard, your guards are probably eating all the corpse markers. And you're probably the one putting down the scheme. But in any case, it's a nice movement trick. It's always nice to have one in your back pocket for the turn you really need it. But then we've got his 2 bonus actions. Sabotage their plans, which has the built-in suit, 6 inches, or built-in required suit. It's target enemy ski marker, drop a ski marker into base contact. So many models have that. It's always just good to have. This is also 6 inches from him or any camera bot that's on the table. So these are pie plates of areas that if your opponent just puts down a ski marker, he's going to forget that you can, if you activate this guy last, you're just going to pick it up from an unbelievable range away. And you get to put your ski marker in place. So it's going to be hugely frustrating and very, very much a joy for you to play with. And then you have your network, which is what the whole point is you can summon your camera bots. So you target a terrain piece within 8, just any terrain piece. It doesn't even have to specifically be blocking. Summon a camera bot with slow into base contact, ignoring line of sight. You need a 6, and it has a suit built in to push any friendly camera bot up to 4. So you can place it the 8 inches and then push it immediately, or push the one that's on the far corner of the board because there's no requirements. It just says you get to push one. They do have a move 0, which means you're having to go through tricks to move the cameras. Obviously, cameras don't walk, although this is Malifaux, so I'm surprised they don't have spider legs. But then you can also have a reposition trigger for yourself. That's kind of useful. He's not walking a lot himself. He's got too many other things to do. So one of the things with this guy is you need to move him through other ways. Push him, throw him, toss him, ride with me. Just anything, because if this guy's spending an AP to walk, you're using him very, very wrong.
Yeah.
There's a bit of a debate whether you hire any camera bots to start or just summon them. They're 2 points apiece, and he's 8, so I've used him a few times in Vassal. If you're on a corner deployment and there's like a ballots box in the corner, there's no reason not to spend 2 stones and have a camera bot touching that. because they have stealth, which means it's already you can't see them. They're also, I think, in Malifaux, the first size 0 model. I don't know if a physical model is size 0. I don't recall ever seeing that. Which I think I even messaged Maeve and I said, "Can people stand on these? Like, is there a rule that like is it's?" And it's like, no, it's still a model. It does mean that if you have anything that targets size, go ahead, it's gonna auto hit.
Right,
Gups.
they're gonna get all the
Gups
upgrades.
Gups are size 0. Okay.
Gups are size 0. Yes.
I couldn't think of much else.
There we go.
But
I think that's it.
So they have From the Shadows stealth, and if remember they have the no charge with the from the Night Silk guy or Nightcrawler.
Yeah.
Night Silk. Why do you keep saying Night Silk?
Yeah.
So you can't see them if you're more than 6 away. If you want to run up and charge them, you don't get the charge attack, and you need to kill them to be able to interact with whatever they're guarding, quote unquote guarding, because they have exclusive interview. So if you try to interact with them too, they're going to treat you as friendly and control it. So the AP required to get into a space that one of these things is on and interact with it, especially on corner deployment. I hire 2 for 4 stones right out the gate and put 1 on each. That allows you to summon 1 for some shenanigans in the middle, and one of them will die eventually, but your opponent is going to hate every single bit of requirements to get through this stupid 2.00 move size model that just has so much stuff coming out of it because of another model that's on the board.
It's Maeve's just like holding her head and shaking it like this is
I hate this model so much. I do.
Maeve, this is your reason to learn how to play Wong, so you can just fuck these things up.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
That's it.
Yeah. This is without a doubt. This is the
God.
first model in this book that I looked at and went, I don't know this is going to last a year in this phase, like in this state. Like this is the first model I think that might possibly be a candidate for getting a little bit of a cuddle. It's insane.
I have another person in mind that we'll get to that faction.
Yeah.
I think he's completely bonkers. I don't think he's not hard to kill if you can get at him, especially with range stuff. He's 8 wounds, just 5/5 willpower defense. If you put Leadline Coat or something on him, you're spending 10 on him plus then for the camera bots. I don't know if that's worth it. This guy is like the old Major of Guild. If you see him on the board, everything you have will kill him, and then the bots are way less useful.
But unlike Old Major, he doesn't need to be anywhere close. Unlike Old Major, he can stay in your deployment zone and continue to do whatever he needs to do.
That is true.
I look at this guy, and it makes me... Guild already kind of had like a Guild good stuff issue going along with crew building, where it's like, well, I can just take the Lone Marshal, and I can take the blah, 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 and the blah, blah, blah. So this is just like another Guild good stuff model. I don't think that it'll be tough to budget 8 stones in most Guild crews, or 9 stones in most Guild crews for this guy, just because of the amount of tech that he brings. And he doesn't need anything from either of his 2 keywords to work. He just works.
Yeah.
Everything he does, he can do independently.
Yeah.
So
super.
I agree with Maeve. Potential candidate for a little bit of an adjustment, in my opinion, but I guess that's the hot take right there.
It might be their big I'm sorry to Guild for their issues with scheming, aside from taking what's her face on the Skidoo from Cavalier. This is now, aside from them and the undercover reporter, that was if you scheme as Guild, you hire one of these guys out of keyword. This guy's definitely, he's just fun. Like, I love the models, I love the idea, and there's so much flexibility. I don't think you'll ever be bored putting him on the table. He's never one note, but except for a bad note for your opponent, because watch them just hate this guy worse than any model, because he's going to do so much work.
So let's see if Maeve snags one of my picks, since Nightcrawler Network was probably all of our number one.
There are 2 models. There are 2 models in this book that I am just like grinding my teeth at. One is the Nightcrawler Network. The other is the Propagandist.
Yes.
This model
is
your
pick?
Bonkers.
Yeah.
Yes. Holy crap. Armor 2, which, okay, sure, it's Guild, whatever. Armor 2 draws cards when in your a living model, whatever. Nihilism, Rage Machine. No one wanted to see any of Hoffman's crew with Rage Machine. No one.
Mm-mm.
No one wanted that.
Nope.
No one asked for that, and yet here we are. We have it. Like, oh my gosh, trample. Like, then you get to it's the back, and it's 10 wounds, armor 2, 10 costs. Like, once again, like, this guy's not going anywhere. And I mean, if you really wanted to be a jerk, it is living. You can put a lead line coat on it and make it armor 3. That's stupid. That's real stupid.
Yeah. Not to cut you off. This is important. I just noticed, can this fucking thing make more of Hoffman 2's stupid terrain markers? It can,
Yes.
can't it?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
Bitch. I'm going to throw this pen across the room.
It helps you
The
produce more
pylons.
pylon markers. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So-
the worst.
So
Okay.
yes, we have hoist the colors on its Vox amplifier, which is probably the only thing you're going to use on it. The other, its base attack is fine. It's a 2-3-4 that could potentially be a 3-4-5. It's fine. But the Vox amplifier doesn't have a gun icon, so there's no reason not to use it. 6 versus willpower, 2 4 blast, 5 blast. Such good damage track already. With 2 triggers, one once per turn, whenever you target an enemy, you choose a friendly marker in play and can create another marker of the chosen kind and base contact with it. You can make scheme markers, you can make whatever you need to make. Like, it's so good. Then it has misdirected rage, which has not been seen on very many models. There's one new model in Bayou that gets it, I think, in this.
Yeah, there is.
And then it's on Bryn, right?
Yep.
This is such a good ability. It makes an enemy basically gets it a semi-obey that ignores engagement and everything else. It's so good. And it's not a once turn action, so you could potentially do it multiple times. And you could do it from 8 inches away. It's disgusting. Its tactical actions give out minions get focus 1, which
Fucking bombastic speech is so dumb. Oh my god.
Guild has some solid minions that really love having focus. Like, that makes there's definitely there's some crews that aren't as good with that focus, but there are other crews like that really love their minions in Guild. And then the trigger on that, until end phase in a friendly model within 3 would gain a condition, it can discard a card not to. So you basically give your whole crew
Just AoE
nihilism.
nihilism. Sure.
Like, and in crews like Lucy, like, they love that, right? Like, they draw cards all the time. They're gonna love discarding cards for that. Then it gets Impassioned Defense, which is the same thing the lawyers have, but it has a fake news, so discard 3 cards, up to 3 cards, then draw.
That trigger is the thing that puts this model over the line for me. It is so good. All you need is a 4 mask, and then you get to cycle 3 cards.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
So this thing
Holy
is hard.
shit.
The only thing I will say is that, like, its only big defense is armor 2, and you're already thinking about armor reduction in Guild in the first place. So getting past armor 2 is not necessarily a bad thing, but Guild has a lot of good card draw crews, a lot of good hand filtering crews. It's so good. He's so good.
Well, and don't forget with the armor issue is, like we were saying with the Hand of Janus, is he just will target himself with Impassioned Defenses. It starts off giving him shielded 2. So armor 2, shielded 2 is way different than just armor 2.
Yeah.
And that's while he's doing the card filtering, or he just gets to take an extra attack. So that extra attack means you may want to target other models with it. But, like, he also has Rage Machine, so he could just give himself a positive and start wailing on people if they're nearby, and just also be shielded 2, armor 2.
Yeah. Absolutely bonkers.
Yeah.
Absolutely bonkers of a card. Like, this guy is I will say it looks like he is going to be a million. I know it says size 3, but the model looks like it's going to be 1,000,000 inches tall. So we'll see what that looks like.
What I do like about him thematically is, as somebody who was looking forward to getting into journalists and Nelly, my problem was early on is that every time I saw like a Nelly 1 list, she always wants like a big beater or a big model, and it's always like the Peacekeeper or something. And I'm like, it just doesn't fit thematically. It's not a reporter. However, people handing out papers around a guy standing on a bunch of speakers, yelling at everybody, a bunch of stuff, like absolutely fits the theme of journalists. I'm not saying like he'll work really well in an LA crew. Probably not. But thematically, if I want to take a big, hard to move, hard to take down model that's going to do some stuff, like he at least fits the bill, like from a theme point of view.
Right. And I mean, like, what doesn't he fit into? You could put him in a Bashal list, and he's making your Executioners and Bashal get positives on damage. They're just going to heal back up. Everybody loves that, right? Like, he fits pretty well into. I would say he makes Lucy 2 really want to like do, but I don't know that like Lucy himself, or the keyword itself, has too much stuff. But you're also like drawing a lot of cards with that, so you're going to get your chance to misdirected rage more. Like he's a potential like setup to be a sort of like crux model for a Lucy 2 list, or just a Lucy list in general. That's really good. Family can take him and get the free focused on monster hunters, like
that was one of the first things I thought of.
yeah. Like Lady Justice really loves her guys. Like
Oh, good lord, him and freaking Cavalier with the stupid bow guy.
Oh, the Hexpos.
Hexpos.
Yeah.
The good thing is that Rage Machine doesn't
gross.
work with. The good thing that Rage Machine doesn't work with them, but giving them extra focus just for free is disgusting. Also being able to just put down scheme markers for extra heat of battle, just so good.
He may struggle a little bit to keep up with some crews. I think that's his only weakness.
He is a little slow, but
he can move through other models, which is good. But it just depends on the crew if they can pull him along.
Guild is also the faction that has a lot of move towards a friendly model type things. So I'm not really like I don't really think that's too bad. Even in like, as long as you don't play the whole crew forward so he doesn't get a chance to catch up, like even Frontier is going to like this guy because, Bass 1 is going to be swinging in with positives on that shotgun attack, which is pretty good already. So
he's also pretty decent for scheming because he's got draw out secrets on his melee attack, and when you're copying markers, I believe, is it scheme? Can it be scheme?
It can be any marker.
So you can duplicate markers, which is like he could technically create 2 scheme markers while doing other things you'd normally be doing. Yep. I'm not saying that's what you bring him for, but it's that flexibility. If you've already yelled at people and made everybody have focus, and you're like, and you know what, I'm going to put a scheme marker down here.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure any of these crews would not mind the hand filtering of discarding 3 cards, draw 3 cards.
Good. Not terrible. Not terrible.
So good. Also, actually, I take that back. In Lucy, he's crazy because you can mimic Vox amplifiers with Agent 46 and a doppelganger, and then you're getting misdirected rage or hoist the colors 3 times in a turn, maybe 4 times in a turn. And then Lucy 2 has that built-in marker, which you can then, get your triggers automatically. So them getting free misdirected rage.
I think hoist the colors is once per turn. So
hoist colors is once per turn. You're correct.
Yeah, you can misdirect a whole bunch of rage, but thankfully you cannot just pump out as many markers as you want doing that.
But I mean, 3 instances of misdirected rage plus the possibility of like lawyering in, obeying in misdirected rage is like, it's gross.
And
it's gross.
It's so beautifully Guild too. I'm gonna yell lies at you so much you're gonna punch your friend because you believe me.
Yeah, Jesus. Yeah. I genuinely kind of hate this guy, and I've never seen him on the table. Like, I'm already triggered pretty hard. Like, he's done his job. I'm already upset.
There's some misdirected rage going on right now.
It's not misdirected. It's not misdirected
maybe not misdirected.
There's no misdirection. It is targeted rage. Perfectly
rage.
Justifiable rage. Jesse, what's your guy? What's your pick?
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I mean, Guild really got a lot of great models in this book. Like, really, really a lot. I think it took me a little while to come up with this one. This is actually my number 3, because unsurprisingly, you guys picked my number 1 and number 2 because they're pretty obviously amazing. I'm actually going to go with Bracer for my pick.
Interesting.
I think this model is really outstanding. So it's only, a 6 wound enforcer, but it's cost 6. It's versatile, so you can fit it into pretty much any crew. Comes in with defense 6, which is great. Arcane shield, so it's always got a little bit of durability. And then the really big thing is that its mobile is all fuck. Like, it's got Herald, which is awesome. On the move is without a doubt the best mobility ability in probably the game. I mean, start of the activation, you just get to get a 3-inch move ignoring models before you decide what else you need to do. If you do end up taking it along with some of the other starter box models or anything else that gives out shielded, like Impassioned Defense on the Propagandist, if it's got shielded stacked up, it can just be like, yeah, I'm just going to reduce 3 shielded and just take no damage from your attack. Man, it's got some card draw, some card cycling built into the front of the card, and then it's just super good at positional stuff. Like, with Shield Slam, it can just run up, bash something, knock it off an objective. Gets to do extra damage on top of the regular Shield Slam because it's got built-in collision. It has abilities to give itself more shielded. It has Heroic Intervention, which is just like a great ability, and it can give itself more shielded with its bonus action. I mean, you're not necessarily going to use the stay in formation thing all that often unless you're hiring multiple of their starter box models, but I was really debating between either her or Commander Burra as my kind of third pick. And the more I think about it, the more I feel like Bracer just fits into so many crews at such a good value and does stuff that a lot of guild really struggles to get accomplished, that it's just a great model. Great model.
I actually, Burrow was my third pick. So it's funny that we both picked one from the starter box.
I think at first glance, it only took them until they got to the very last 2 starter boxes, but I feel like the guild and guild and resurrectionist starter boxes are really, from a rules perspective, probably 2 of the best ones that we've seen. Like, not overly complex, well balanced, not too squishy. Like, you can easily see somebody getting into the game using these models.
Well, and the mechanics
stuff.
The mechanics that they have, like, for both of those crews, I don't know if we'll get into the rest of one, but for the guild guys, it's pretty simple to understand. And I was talking with Jesse before we started recording about like playtesting or not playtesting, demoing at like Gen Con and conventions. It's always with the starter boxes. Mm-hmm. And some of these starter boxes are a ton of fun, but so hard to teach. The jockeys are a lot of fun, but ridiculous. Like, if you want to just have fun, it's great. But you team that with the Outcast one, and they're all just deleted by the second turn. And the person who's playing the jockeys is like, I don't like this game. But the Neverborn and Arcanist ones are actually, even for myself, and I have a fair bit of games under my belt, I had to like reread the cards a few times. Be like, wait, there's a whole lot of interactions we're not doing right now. I guess just ignore some of them. Let's just go. I think the guild ones, I think the using the shielded is very quick and easy to understand. It's one condition being spread. The being able to like stack the shielded and being able to use it all in one hit is a great thing, because as any kin player or other person knows, it's like, oh, you're hitting me with a focus. It's like, man, I've got 4 shielded here and this is not going to help me.
Yeah. So long story short, great model. And I guess I get the double pick. So we go right into Neverborn. And I'll tell you what, I had a hell of a time making a pick on this one, because
so good,
phenomenal stuff in this faction. But I think I'm just gonna have to go right for the big one and go with the Suzuki sisters, because that model is freaking amazing. Like, incredible mechanic, which we're going to get into in just a sec. They do stuff that every Neverborn crew is going to want to take advantage of. I mean, 10 stone, versatile enforcer, 6s across the board for stats, And it has this really cool mechanic where when it activates, it gets to swap out like a Phases of the Moon upgrade. And one of the two upgrades makes it into a melee beat stick, and the other one makes it into basically like a nuker. There's a lot to unpack with these two guys, but the long story short is that the melee one gives you combat finesse, mobile warrior, gives its shockwave a trigger to remove any non-scheme marker within the pulse generated by the shockwave, and it gives it a 3/4/5 stat 6 attack with burst of speed and mutilate, which is disgusting. Its ranged action gives it avoid doom, which is pretty incredible, and anybody that plays Neverborn makes use of that all the time. Bulletproof 2, which is like not amazing, but still a very solid defensive piece of tech. And then it gets on its shockwave another thing that lets you remove any scheme marker touching the pulse generated by the shockwave. And just being able to drop a shockwave that can remove scheme markers that are even potentially out of your line of sight is super good. And then it gets a 2/4/6 stat 6 targeting willpower with triggers for armor piercing and another new one called Devastating Strike on a ram. When resolving, the action's damage flip receives a positive and the target suffers an additional blast. It's crazy. Crazy good. And that's just the two upgrades. Like, the card has other rules and they're kind of incredible. So before I even get into anything else on the card, this model is going to look freaking amazing if the art is any indication of that. And I can't wait to see it get painted up. But man,
I'm excited.
Yeah. So for those two upgrades, basically every time you start this model's activation, you discard all of the Phases of the Moon upgrades, and then you just pick one to put back on it. You don't have to alternate between them. You can just keep picking the same one over and over again. It's got a crazy ability called Perfect Form that just lets it choose any one of its actions to treat as a bonus action for the turn. Great. And then regen just for funsies. It's got a lure that can give them the target your choice of either focus or distracted on a trigger. It's got that shockwave we talked about that can get different triggers depending on which phase you have on it. Friendly models get to ignore it, and it just does just 2 damage, so nothing crazy, but you get to remove those markers as part of the action depending on which phase of the moon you have. And then it's got this super good ability called Moon's Protection. It's this stat 6 needs a 12 for a TN, enemy only. Push all other friendly models within an inch of the target, 3 inches away from the target, then push this model up to 6 inches towards the target, and you get to take an attack action, and as a bonus, it's Gut Surge to draw a card. That's a great ass bonus action, I'll tell you that.
And keep in mind
random. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say that is not to make sure people understand. Like, that is not what is the ability on the Swine Cursed?
We're on the same page. I was gonna say that the Swine Cursed have Heroic Intervention.
Because that one very specifically says it has to be a melee action. This is not a melee action. This is any action.
Oh yeah, and up to 6 inches, you don't even have to push the full. You don't have to fully push in. So if you're in your ranged form, you don't have to. You don't have to
move
in.
at all. You can move an iota.
Yeah,
little bit.
And you're pushing everybody away from the model you might want to shoot too. So that's.
Yep. So I don't know that this model is going to bring like a ridiculous amount of tech to the field, but I mean, quite frankly, a lot of Neverborn models have a lot of fun tech anyway. I just think that this thing is going to make it into a lot of crews. There's tough competition out there because you've got, Matures out of Keyword, you've got the super good Emissary, but I don't think that you're ever going to take this model and be disappointed that you did. It is just a great all-around monster.
It's definitely got the rule of cool going for it, for sure.
For sure.
I think it's a really cool high ceiling model too. Like learning when to switch those upgrades out, which which action you want to make into a bonus action, that sort of thing is all that's all going to take some time to like figure out. And the more you play with this model, the better you'll get with it. I like it a lot. I think it's cool. And I think you're right. Neverborn's stacked in this book, and they're already in a good position.
The one thing
Go
about
ahead.
the sisters is they're pretty fragile for a 10 stone model. Like 6s for defensive willpower and regen are nice. I think when you're saying like the skill ceiling and for this model, I also think there's like the skill floor is a little bit hard because if you overcommit this model at any time, it's gone.
Yep.
You need to do a lot to keep it going. I think it might need some support. When it does its thing, it is going to cut like a hot knife through butter, and it's going to change the entire swing of the game. But it may not be there to do it again the next turn. So I think it's a very much a finesse model. I think people who really know what they're doing and are comfortable will get great work out of it. And I think some games you're just going to cry because turn 2, it's just gone.
Yeah, I think this is a model that stays at range for probably turns 1 and turn 2, and then when your frontline beaters get taken down by turn 3, it swaps into melee mode and dives in to kind of clean up. But yeah, if you just dive it in right away, it's going to be in a tough spot because it doesn't have a lot going on defensively. So Maeve, I guess you're up. What you got?
I was gonna go with the lip tree, but instead I will go with Ithana. I can't look at that.
Fucking lip tree. Oh,
I can't look at it. I can't look at the art. It's so.
Thanks for putting that out into the world now. Now that is exactly what it will be known for forever.
It's.
Yep.
Oh my god!
So tell us why Ithana is amazing and why Aislinn will never see the table ever again, Maeve.
Oh god! Okay. So first of all, germinate as a bonus action. I love it so much. Just being able to like with the boar, right? Like the boar can just germinate as a bonus action now, and then teleport as a bonus action with all of its stuff is so good. She is, she's a willpower 7. She's unimpeded, which is important because like especially for Fae, because like Fae have a lot of ignores underbrush, but they don't have a lot of unimpeded. So they're really good against underbrush. They're not really good against the rest of the board. So having a model that's unimpeded is a big deal. Her sword is pretty good. Being able to heal her back up is really good, especially because she's a black blood model that's going to want to bleed all over everything. But her other action, the Desdemona's Thirst, I love this. If the target's engaged, it receives a plus to the duel. It's a 6. It's got 8-inch range. It's a 2/3/4 damage track, which is not great, but it's got coordinated attack and siphon life, so it can potentially get really, really nasty.
Did you hear that, Dixon? We said it's another model that you can take coordinated attack with. Dixon's favorite trigger of all time.
Yeah. Oh no, Dixon and I have had during playtest had a lot of work on this model, like talking about this model. And,
oh boy.
It's got another shockwave. Like shockwaves are big, right? Like there's a lot of shockwaves going around. This one is enemy models suffer a -1 to their duel to resist the shockwave for each type of non-shockwave marker within 3 of them. So if you have a scheme marker, a corpse marker, and an underbrush marker, you're at -3 to the resist, which is a move 12. So that essentially makes it a move 15.
So hot take, I think this might be the single best shockwave action in the game.
It's disgusting.
I really do.
And then the trigger on it lets you drop a underbrush marker instead of a shockwave marker, so you're just automatically, if you have that trigger, you're going in at a TN13. And then I'm sure,
and she's a hench, so she can just get it.
She can do it.
She can just get it.
Also, it's a 50 mil instead of 30 mil that you're doing the shockwave off of too.
Yep. That's a big deal. That's a big deal because it is a shockwave 2.
Shockwave
so you're reaching out
2,
4 inches effectively. Yeah.
A handy tip to listeners: remember that if you drop the shockwave that's 50 mil onto a model, they are not going to get hit by it because it radiates off the edges.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
that's the one trick with 50 mils. I've seen people screw up a lot where they're like, look at everything I'm getting. I'm like, I have 2 models inside that shockwave. They're actually not targeted.
And then she can move. Her bonus action lets her move a corpse or underbrush marker up to 3, and then heal everything with impulse 2, which is really good with like the knights and the like things that are already pretty sturdy in the
Yeah.
keyword.
And it's not, point of order, it's not pulse 2 of her, it's pulse 2 off of the 50 millimeter
Right,
underbrush
it's 4
marker that
inches.
she just
Yeah.
moved.
Yeah, it's 4-inch.
Or technically corpse markers, because she also drops corpse markers as well as
That's
others
true.
when she kills things, right?
Yep.
That's one of her front of card, I think.
Yep.
Yeah.
She gets
So
potentially double corpse markers off of killing something, or
Yeah, she's really solid. She's 8 soulstones, so she doesn't feel like she's a heavy tax into either keyword. I think that Nephilim is pretty stacked with models it wants to take right now.
Yeah.
So I think in Nephilim she's going to have a harder time finding a constant place. But I have a hard time seeing her not being in every single fake keyword list from now on.
Yeah, this is basically how you patch Fae.
Yeah.
This is the fix for the keyword. Now, if only she could fix Carver and Killjoy,
she
we'd
did.
be in great shape.
She'll let him drop a Germinate as a bonus action.
There you go.
Oh no, wait! You have to have the Germinate action. Never mind, I'm lying.
Yeah.
You don't get the
Yeah,
action.
true
You just
story.
get to use.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry, Carver. We almost made you a gardener.
Almost.
But out of all
Almost.
of the really good cards, this is the one I think I like the most out of and that's saying a lot because Neverborn gets some pretty cool stuff.
Yeah. I was tossed up between this or the Suzuki Sisters for my pick.
Yeah.
And because I don't know the Fae keyword well enough, I didn't feel like I'd be able to touch on all of the little interactions. Right. So I went with the safe pick instead. But with all that said, Kylie, what did you take?
Funny segue from that. I would like to take Delirium for the model just alone. It's beautiful and I want to paint it. And I always have loved Dreamer. I have almost no experience playing Dreamer since like M3 launch. So I'm not going to try to act like I'm an expert. Ooh. Because of that, I'm going to go a little bit off and I'm going to pick something that I want to love more than I think I probably do. And that's the Leech King.
Nice.
I know he can do a lot of things. I'm not entirely convinced it will always pay off. I think this model is going to have really high highs and really low lows. Yeah. If you chain off a giant leech that then chains another giant leech, that turn just went perfect for you. That will be once every 6 games, maybe, unless there's some secret sauce probably there to help. But what he does, he's returned in Swamp Fiend. I don't play a lot of returns, but I have a fair bit of Swamp Fiend experience, so I'll probably lean heavier into where I think he could fit there. Evasive is always nice. I don't know. I think returned have some more pulses and stuff that he'd be worried about. I don't think he has to worry too much about that, but it's always nice to have. I'll have what they're having. Once per activation, if he would heal in excess of his maximum health, a friendly model within 4 gets to heal the amount equal. What's nice about that is they're very clear. It is when they would heal, so it still works if he's at his full health. And it is the amount. It's not just procs 1, which is like in some of the cases where they get to heal 1. Like it's whatever he would heal by. So there's probably some great ways to throw some other models doing a big heal onto him and then getting that to be able to like springboarded from so your healers can be a little safe. I am a fan of the Bokors. I know everybody hates them post nerf issues. I like them. They can move themselves and heal 3 times. I'm a fan.
They're shaking her head.
So while I try, I know. Honestly, they're so much worse than they were. But if they came out like in this book as they are now, I think people would be okay with them. They wouldn't love them, but if you're not paying for them out of keyword, they're okay healers.
It's the cost of the heal that gets me every time I play them.
That's rough. I bring one into kin a lot because Ophelia 2 has so much card draw that it doesn't matter. But anyways, we're getting onto a tangent. Because I bring Bokors even in Zoraida sometimes, if you can splash a bunch of big heals onto this guy when he's at full health, you can then ricochet that 4 off of him. So your Bokors can stay back a little bit more because he doesn't want to be in the mix completely because he's not super tough. His defense 5, willpower 6, regen 1. He is ruthless. It's nice to have ruthless. Like, you don't have to pay for the upgrade, at least if you're playing Bayou.
Yeah, that's like such
but
a
yeah,
random ruthless too. Like it just doesn't like I don't get it. But
I guess
sure,
if you spend all your time with giant leeches, you don't get scared with much.
I guess.
I guess. He has 8 costs with 9. Like, he's got 9 health and a 5/6 in regen, so he's not bad. Like, he's fairly costed for how defensive he is, but
Yeah.
if he's targeted, he goes down. So his sharp claws are nothing to write home about. Sadly, just a stat 5, 2, 3, 4. Drink blood, which I would have loved to see like built in, because as an enforcer, you can't guarantee it. He does have infested with leeches that makes the model unable to heal. I think that's nice, but on a 1-inch, like if you're charging in and hitting something just so it can't heal, I don't think he's doing enough damage that you're really happy about being there anyways.
Yeah, I don't think this melee is what you take him for sure. Yeah. Blood magic. Blood magic is very solid though.
Blood magic though, I think is what's the best part of his card. 8 inches, no gun or anything on it. Stat 6 against willpower. So if a target has half its maximum health or less, the action ignores any negatives to its damage flip, which is great, except it's a 1/3/5. So, but if you hit a hard to wound model and you tie them, then you're just like, all right, I'm still getting a straight flip on this. So you could still you get those like the damage spikes. Built-in infect. It's not bad. It's always good to throw some poison on people. He has also the possibility of drink blood, so again, another way to heal. And then hemophilia, which the target must either suffer 2 additional damage or gain stunned. When you let your opponent pick, it's always kind of rough. By 2 damage or stunned, I don't think either one of those is something anybody wants, because an extra 2 damage makes him a 3, 5, 7 damage track. And if he's ignoring the negatives on that when they're already at half health, that probably means that just kills the model. So they're going to take stunned.
Yeah. And I would say, just to chime in, drink blood on a stat 6 willpower that has an 8-inch range on a model that can then bounce that heal out to another model within 4 of them is pretty flipping good. Yeah.
And then he has Clue of Leeches. Clue? CLEW? Clue?
Yeah. Clue.
I didn't know what a group of leeches was called. I guess now I
Neither did I until just now.
Sure. Education. That's what we're here for. So range 8, stat 5 versus defense. It needs a 16 with a crow. So this is his summon. So once per turn, enemy only. If the target is at half its health, you get +1 and the crow built in. So it becomes a 15, which means you would need a 10. So you need a 10 if they're at half health or lower, or an 11 of crows if they're not. And then you get to summon a giant leash with slow into base contact.
This is a weird one because it's a resisted summon. Like, that's where it kind of loses me. I'm like, do I want to throw a big card at this to try and get a giant leech? Like, I just don't know.
I guess the thing, you're probably activating him late anyways because you're trying to get the heals off. Like, you're probably treating him more as a support model. I kind of wish the Clue of Leeches was the bonus action, so he could only do it once because it's already once per turn. I'd love to I'll give it a shot. If I get a leech, I'm happy. But because you have to spend the AP for it, it feels a bit more of a struggle. And then he's got Bloodletting, so you can end a condition for a cost of 1 irreducible damage on a friendly within 8. There'll be times where that matters. It never hurts to have, that's the bonus action, so it never hurts to say, oh, this has a condition. He's going to be putting out more health, especially in like a Swamp Fiend crew. He's going to be bouncing health around more, because they don't have as much, except for the plant stuff. They won't be healing themselves. I think he's okay. We don't have to go through the leeches. They're decent. Some people like them as a higher because they're move 6 stealth models. I think they die. Whether that's worth your opponent, because they go into base contact, whether your opponent killing them is worth the fact that they're using their actions to do so.
Yeah,
it's a weird trade-off. If there will be some times where your opponent will get so mad because you got the one leech and then they're able to summon the other leech and they have latch on, so all of a sudden your defense is like plummeting.
-2. Yeah, bad news.
But if they really don't want them there, they won't be there. Like, you can kill these things pretty easy. I don't know what you take out of a crew to put him in, but I do think that there's enough flexibility, and that I do not know Dreamer enough to talk about the really cool Delirium or Thralls. So that's why he's my pick.
That's a fair answer.
I
So,
am very cold, I think, on
yeah.
the Lich King on general, which means I will be proven very wrong when it hits a table against me. But we'll see.
I'm going to be very interested to see what the actual model looks like and how fucking gross it's going to look when somebody paints it up right. Like all leeches are probably going to have like varnish on them so they look shiny and gross.
Oh yeah, well, it's like people doing the what's the goo thing from Explorers?
Grave goo.
Grave goo. So like you see, that's the difference between amazing painters and painters, where you're like, how does that look like it's actually see-through? I know that's solid plastic.
Yeah.
So we've been talking about some factions that got some cool toys, and I think now we're at the faction that got the most cool toys. So I'm very interested to see what you guys think about Outcasts. So Kylie, you have first pick. What'd you got?
Oof.
You're gonna take
stuff.
the one I
There's
want.
so much
I know
good
you're
stuff
gonna
in
pick it.
here.
This was probably the hardest faction because there's just so much good stuff. This was also the only faction I wasn't worried about going last because I'm equally happy with all three of my picks.
Yeah, there's so much good stuff. Yeah,
we could do an entire episode on this guy, but Dr. Silas.
Yeah, there he is.
That's my number one. For a few reasons. Just off to the start, when I first started Malifaux, it was the old M2E starter box that had all the blood wretches and the asylum models, and I just loved the concept. And I loved Dr. Grimble running around trying to lobotomize people and stuff. So just right away, the idea that you can now field these guys as a crew, I got so excited about that. I was just like, yes, I can finally do this.
I love the fact that we have a henchman that was expressly designed to be a leader. Yes. And everything on his card, top to bottom, speaks to that. So, to your point, we could probably spend a whole episode talking about Dr. Silas, and I wouldn't be surprised if we do at some point. But give us some broad strokes of why you love him so much.
One of my other favorite things is when you look across, if you're playing in person and you see your opponent's cards, it's going to look like a bag of Skittles. Because it's like you're gonna have red in there, you're gonna have yellow, you're gonna have like just the sheer like hiring pool that taking him specifically opens up it's crazy. But outside of like that keyword as a keyword, because again, that's an entire episode at least. He's pretty beefy boy. He's got 12 wounds, defense 5, willpower 6. So not bad. That's aside from Black Blood, he doesn't really have any other defensive stuff. And being size 3 and being the leader that's giving all the stuff out, this is the model that your opponents are going to barrel rush. Like they're going to try to get this guy out. I don't know if Outcast has any take the hit models. If you do, boys, line them up because you need to do something to keep this guy alive.
They do. They just got one.
That being said,
like the other Outcast model that has toss.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
is there one? Right.
The ancient constructs.
Yeah.
2 different toss models, and one of them has take the hit. Yeah, that's probably going to make it into this crew.
So aside from taking hits, he's pretty good at doing a fair bit of stuff. First of all, he, again, another one of these models that I picked because they solve a problem immediately, is any friendly Asylum and Half-Blood models ignore Black Blood. Any damage from Black Blood. So they just put that on the card because the first thing you'd start to do if you didn't have that is you'd watch all your Asylum models just dissolve. And then it just makes him a Half-Blood leader, which is half as cool. No pun intended, actually. His big thing is he's got his ethics violation. So at the start of his activation, he gets to attach an upgrade card to a friendly model within 8. If he's the leader, he can discard a card to do it again. So for the cost of a card, right at the beginning, you just throw out the upgrades. And it's at the beginning of his activation, not the beginning of the turn. So you have your upgrades that you can attach. If he's the leader, they can be, you have 3 per upgrade, so you can have 6 in total. And they can spend the upgrade to get a positive on an action that they declare. I don't know if it's attack action. I think it's any action. Yeah, just any action. And you get any suit that you want built into it.
Yeah, pretty incredible. Yep.
So that's pretty useful right just on the gate. But that's just what these 2 upgrades do normally. And then they each do something different. So Down with the Sickness gives them Hunting Partner. sort of useful, but in a crew that's actually no, never mind. I was going to say a crew with Angel Eyes, but that doesn't matter. She doesn't care about
Yeah.
about friendly
Yeah,
fire.
I think Maurice might be the only one that actually cares about it, which is like not that exciting.
Maurice and Tuco, yeah.
Oh, Tuco.
Oh yeah, Tuco would. But then you also get a tactical action as a bonus for bloodletting, so you get to end a condition at a cost of a damage. So not bad.
That's handy.
You're mostly liking the positive and built-in suit. That's kind of a big deal, but you can get some conditions gone. The second one is much better though, because to find the cure, you get the same positive and suit built in as the first one if you want to discard it. But then you also just get black blood, which, because your crew gets to ignore it, the more of that you can put out there is amazing.
For sure.
But what's insane is that the bonus action is a leap.
Fucking leap. The fuck out.
Now, you need a 7.
Leap on blood wretches. Yeah. Come on.
You need a 7 because it's a stat 3 and it's a 10 of a mask. But remember, you can discard this upgrade before you use that action, which means you just huck this upgrade and you get a suited leap with a positive to get that 7.
Mm-hmm. Pretty silly.
So, as they are restricted to like the keywords, there's still some models that would love to just randomly get a bonus leap. Dr. Grimwell just leaping 6 inches as a bonus is a lot of fun. Also,
yes.
if you've been trying to get his lobotomy trigger to work by putting staggered on models, you don't need to if you have this upgrade on him.
Don't need to. Yeah.
Because you can add the crow and get a positive to swing to start with.
Andy's a henchman, so yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I can dig that.
So the upgrades are just crazy. That positive and built-in suit, I haven't gone through a huge amount. Tuco actually really likes that. He likes the positive to hit, and he's got some really nasty triggers. And I think one of the only reasons that people don't see him a lot, but other than that he's in crews that have better models, is that you can't guarantee those triggers. Mm-hmm. If you get a positive to hit and can guarantee any trigger on some of those actions, like his gun action, he's suddenly very, very solid. He may still not be the best pick even in this crew, but like being able to put this on minions or enforcers that have great triggers that are locked by not being able to stone, that's a bit of a problem that this immediately gets rid of. So
God, he's still got so much card too. Oh my god.
But yeah, that's just talking about the upgrades. Outpatience is huge. So he's got a 12-inch aura that if a friendly Asylum model within range, so not the half-bloods, it has to be Asylum. If they get killed, you replace them with a Blood Wretch that heals 3. You do not discard any upgrades on the model when it's replaced.
Yeah, they have to keep them even if they're restricted too. So
and you ignore the restricted limitation. Replace is really big in this GG because it's not summon.
Right.
As you have to discard a card for this to work. If you keep cards in hand, that you can like channel all these models and get a whole second activation out of them, and you can still interact. You can still count for like things like vaults. If you go in and you're losing your orderlies and models that you're just like, these guys are just gonna die. Suddenly, if you in your head thought they have demise turn into Blood Wretch, suddenly they're a little bit cooler. Taking other upgrades, like you can actually hire your actual outcast upgrades and attach them on these models at the beginning of the game, and they get to keep those too when they're replaced. Yeah. So that plus
an orderly with was it Wanted Criminal, the one that gives on the move? Is that it? Right?
I think so. I'm so bad at outcasts. Yeah.
So like orderlies with that upgrade, and then they also get to get the other stuff from this crew. Yeah, that's pretty slick. I like it.
Yeah, and if you're worried that they come in wounded, you know who else is Asylum is nurses, because nurses are bad. So what could taking a nurse or two into this crew help with at all, except for keeping your squishy master alive? And
I forgot you could take nurses.
Oh yeah, nurses. Dirty. So you have tools for the job and all the amazingness that is nurses, and you don't even have to pay out of keyword for them. They're keywords. You get them at normal cost.
Is this the awful. Most factions?
By the way,
I think it might be.
That's what I say. It's like I think it's guild, rezzers, outcasts, neverborn.
Yeah.
Interesting.
All right, we're gonna step it up a little bit, so
yes,
let's breeze through the back of the card.
This
It's
is
okay.
good.
There's just so much to talk about this guy.
This guy's like the only thing I'm going to say. You can take him as not the leader. You could bring him in another asylum or half blood crew. I don't know that you would because he's 10 stones.
Yeah.
I don't know why you would, except for at the very least you're getting what we're going to mention now. Toss, because toss is a thing.
Toss is great,
especially if you're a big size 3 guy. So everybody knows what toss does. He has a trigger 1 flew east. So once per turn, you can take his bonus action on the model, ignoring range. So you basically toss him 10 and then do the bonus action. And another trigger, you give him focus. So either of those triggers, if you toss him, you're like, okay, get up there and be focused, or get up there and then I'm going to use my bonus. And what that does is target resolves any 2 of the following effects: heal 1, push 2 inches, or draw a card, and then it takes the damage. So you could toss someone 10 and then push them 2 in case 10 inches wasn't far enough for whatever you're trying to do, or if you have to go around a corner. Or just get a card for fun, heal him if he was damaged because you wanted to throw him into stuff, and you're like, oh, you're a little wounded, let's heal you first. It's crazy how good that toss is. And then the last action he has is, he does have Deadly Claws. He can attack. Stat 6, 2, 4, 5 with a drink blood, so he can heal himself a bit on the swings.
The drink blood, I think, is the money, because this guy's going to take a lot of hits. And for somebody who's played a lot of Amonozako, drink blood is a money trigger. It's so good.
Yeah, especially if you can stone for it as a henchman or a leader in this case.
Yeah.
And then the other one, he's just got Sedate Them, that gives people slow, and they either discard a card or gain staggered. There's a lot of the Asylum stuff that works on staggered. Specifically, multiple models that now make you not count for your schemes and strats if you're staggered in engaging them. They have multiples of those. So everyone who hates Transmortis for doing that to one of your models, try having a bunch of these guys tossed at you, literally thrown at you, and then say, yeah, you 3 guys by this vault, you don't count anymore because you were staggered. And that has an on your heels too. So if he was feeling like he was getting left behind because he's been tossing all of his keyword, he can 8 inches do this to somebody and just leap to the other side of them.
I can't wait to see the first Dr. Silas big tournament win. It's going to be great.
Oh, it is bonkers. I don't think he'll be S tier. I think there's some crews that will just destroy him, but I think he will be a ton of fun. Probably some of the most fun I can think of. Like right now, I'm like, I cannot even tell you how many lists are going through my head and ideas with this crew.
Yeah, I mean, if you bring any amount of ranged pressure, his crew just doesn't really have a good way to deal with that. So he's just going to kind of fall over unless he can get in your face. But it's super, super cool still. Super cool. So, Dr. Silas, that's a whole lot to talk about. And I think, honestly, you probably covered everything that I was going to mention. Maeve, did you have any thoughts on this before we move on to your pick?
It's a cool looking model. It's going to be a great looking model. I'm so excited.
Oh, yeah.
I know there's probably some Neverborn and guild players that are very mad that he's outcast.
But yes.
Yeah.
But everybody finally gets their models from that starter set from M2E, which I've been kicking around and gathering dust, except for recently Angel Eyes. And the Blood Wretches just got much better too. Much so better, the fact that I think it's gonna be a lot of fun.
Giving Blood Wretches Black Blood when they have that bonus action to take a damage and get focused, super gross.
Yeah,
super gross. I have a pick.
Maeve, what's your pick?
It's the Fumigator.
Ooh,
this guy
so close to mine.
Wild. First of all, let's just mark down that he has a ton of really good triggers, and he has referencing the field guide. So good. Giving Sleeping Strike on a attack that does 2 blast, 3 blast, 4 blast, and gains poison 1 to models damage, or tank for blight tokens if you're playing him in Plague. Really, really nasty. The Shockwave is really good with Not a Bomb, which is actually something I think that Free Corpse and Plague kind of needed, was to have some extra like marker drop that's just kind of free. Also just hands blight tokens out if you fail it. Like that's pretty disgusting. He can summon a rat instead of a shockwave marker, which is just gets to just do because of reference to field guide. Another extended reach model with the 2-inch range. Very good. I like it. Healing from poison whenever you discard a card. He gets to gain poison back, and he's a 7 wound, defense 5, armor 1 that you can easily give hard to kill. I think this guy is going to be super good in Plague. I don't necessarily know exactly where he's going to fall in Free Corps, but this is just the kind of model that Plague really wanted to have around. So I'm very interested to see what people do with him.
Yeah, very, very strong model. I was tossed up between that and my pick. He's very good. Very, very good.
The real question is, how are people going to make him feel like he's got cats? Because if you're using the nightmare crew, what's the fumigator doing for the cats?
It's true. It's true.
These are the big questions we got to ask ourselves.
Absolutely.
I would say for my pick, I'll be honest, I'm very tossed up on this one. I'm tempted to say Tunnel Rats because I feel like they bring a tremendous amount to the crew and the faction on the whole, but I'm going to go with my first inclination, and that's going to be the Bad Omen.
Yes. Nice.
Bad Omen is such a baller model. Go ahead, Maeve. You were going to say something?
I was going to say, I think I've got it, Kylie. You just put a litter box on his base. Anyone who's ever had multiple cats knows that fumigator that mask is needed to clean out the litter box.
Oh, so it's a reverse fumigator. It's actually sucking the smell out instead of adding. Fair enough. Sorry.
Bad Omen is a 10-stone enforcer. It's got a lot of unique stuff on it. A lot of it actually gets pulled from the obliteration keyword, which is really cool to see because it's some of the rules on like Aeonis that, I mean, sad to say, but Aeonis just doesn't really get the play that I'd like him to. It has a really cool demise ability called Death May Die. So after he gets killed by an enemy model, it attaches an Omen upgrade. After the model that has the upgrade on it gets killed, the Bad Omen heals 4 and pops back out into base contact with it. And then it randomly gets a crow trigger on every one of its actions that has to be declared, where if it hits it, the action fails immediately. It's wild. I don't really know how often this model is going to find its way into a lot of crews because Outcast is kind of spoiled for great picks and fantastic models. But, 10 stones ain't no joke. But I think that there's enough other tech on this card, especially Suppress Magic, which is like the most ball-breaking ability that I've seen in a while. It's a 6-inch aura where anytime a model within the aura uses a soul stone, they have to discard a card or the effect of the soul stone is ignored. It is just absolutely vicious when there's like a model or a master that's dived in to try and beat your backfield up. The Bad Omen can seriously shut it down or completely tap them out on their hand if they are going to end up having to stone.
Or a summoner that doesn't have much cards that needs to use their stones in order to get their summon out.
Gross. And then it just it has Vengeance for the fun of it. It's got a 2/4/6 attack with some decent triggers, nothing so crazy. Blood Loss, Onslaught, and Siphon Essence, all of which exist on other stuff. And then it has the Iona stuff with Eventuality, where the target, it's a stat 7 on willpower. Target suffers damage equal to the turn number. And on a ram, you can make the damage irreducible. Yeah, and it has on your heals as well, because why not? So damage 3 irreducible is really nasty. 4 irreducible is super gross. And if you get to 5 irreducible, you're kind of fucked. Bad news. And then for the start of the game, it's got a move this model 6 inches, reduce the distance moved by a number of inches equal to the turn number as a bonus action. So it just gets a kind of like an onward that it only needs a 3 for that matters for turn 1. And then after that, it probably doesn't matter so much anymore. And then it has the fucking craziest ability. I don't know if it's super powerful, but it is the most bananas thing that I've seen in the game of Malifaux. Bonus action, Impending Doom, 8-inch range, no target number, no resist, enemy only. Target a non-leader model that has not yet activated this turn. During the end phase, if the target is in this model's line of sight, it must discard a card with a value of 9 or greater or a soul stone. If it does neither, it is killed, ignoring demise.
Gosh, so good. So
What
good.
the fuck?
So good.
This thing is crazy.
The best and worst thing about this model is you're going to be humming that stupid song because you're always going to think, what does the fox do? Because when you're activating it, well, in turn and what turn you're activating it is going to change how this model plays. I don't know if that is good enough to counter the fact that that also restricts you a little bit. Like, as the game goes on, he's going to be slower, but he's going to do more damage where he is. The big thing with him having that demise and then coming back is like, oh, yeah, but he won't be around turn 5. Oh, he might. You might kill him, and then I kill you, and I get him back, and it's turn 5, and now I do 5 damage to one of your models because I'm back. Like,
Also, Kylie, as a Karai player, can you imagine the like complete sadness of all of my built-in crows now can just execute me?
yeah. Well, that's the thing too, is if a model kills you that relies on crow triggers, and then they just don't get their crow triggers anymore, like that's also like
if McMorning kills him, McMorning then can't use. Isn't McMorning have crows built in onto his attack? McMorning 1?
Probably, yeah.
Like,
I can't remember.
Any model that has a crow built in on its attack, if it kills him, cannot use that attack again, or it just instantly dies.
Yeah. Instantly fails. The attack fails.
Or fails, yeah. The attack fails, which like
Instantly
takes
fails,
out
yeah.
those big attacks, right? Like, absolutely ruins.
Yeah. No, that's a great point.
Sebastian has a built-in crow on his attack.
Yeah.
So like, it just totally like just buckles that model down.
He's going to do a ton of stuff. I don't know if he's going to do 10 stones worth of stuff. You don't really tech against him, so when you see him, you're like, oh, fuck, what's that? Oh, God, what's that thing do again? I would love to take him in DAW because he puts out an upgrade if you kill him, and that's just also a benefit because I love you having upgrades.
Yep.
I can't fit a 10 stone model in a DAW list. Like, it's just not possible. He looks like he's so much fun to play, and I don't think you're going to see him a lot because it's too hard to know exactly what you're doing with him because it's turn by turn. But I think he'll make his points back. It's just, again, what do you take out to fit in a 10 stone kind of swingy model that changes pace mid game?
He's such a cool looking model too. He's gonna look awesome.
Oh yeah,
yeah, like this wolf jackal,
beautiful
whatever.
paint job.
Like, yeah.
Yep. And we've seen a lot of 50 mils so far in the models that we've talked about, but just the fact that this guy has incorporeal is going to make a big difference.
Yep.
So I'm going to move on to my Rezzers pick. And what, reason would suggest that I would say Ezekiel, but Ezekiel's dead to me. So we're not going to talk about him during this podcast. I am actually... You're allowed to talk about him if you want. I am not going to talk about Ezekiel.
Is it just because he's not bio?
Because he's not also bio.
Yeah. Okay. So we can hold each other and cry after the episode because that was me too. I've been wanting a Rezzer bio, and I'm like, finally, and I'm like, oh no.
I also am not going to say Ezekiel because he's already been talked about on numerous other podcast and content creation channels. He's fucking good. You guys can feel free to pick him if you want. I'm going to switch things up, and I'm going to go for my number 3 pick, which in retrospect, I think might actually be the craziest one in Rezzers, and that's the Leftovers.
Yeah.
This model is bananas.
Yeah.
So cool.
There's literally 3 models that go along with talking about this guy, so I'm not going to get into all that level of detail, but it's basically a giant glob of flesh and stitched together limbs and disgustingness. The long and the short of it is that this is an experimental and transmortis model, costs 8, and I don't see why you don't take this in almost any Rezzers crew. It's
so
crazy.
Gross. The model is going to be so disgusting.
It's got a lot. Yeah, it's going to be really disgusting. It's got a lot of rules that are like kind of cool, but not super important. The stuff that really stands out on it is that it's got a demise ability called Bisected. After it's killed by an enemy model, importantly, it heals 4 and is replaced by 2 bisection models, which are health 4, hard to wound. You can't hire them. They can heal from poison, just like the regular one can. They've got some actions that don't really matter, except they've also got lecture notes, which the Leftovers also has. And yeah, that's a lot of free bonus actions for stunned. And then if you manage to kill the bisection, it has a demise quartered ability. So when it dies, it heals 2 and is replaced by 2 last bite models, which are little eyeballs that have projectile vomit. The number of wounds on this model, because the Leftovers and the bisections both have hard to wound. Now, granted, the way that replaces work, and you guys will have to correct me if I'm wrong here, but if it heals 4 and gets replaced by 2 bisections, do they come in at health 4 or health 2? Because you divide the number of remaining wounds, right?
Yeah.
Right. So they come in at health 2. So like it's not that hard to kill them. And then the last bites come in at health 1, assuming nothing heals after the fact. But if you let the models that get replaced kind of snowball and get some heals, then things can start getting really out of hand. The other stuff that this thing does are, it's got a 2-4-6 attack, which is nothing to sneeze at, that also has daze and accidental rollover. It's got lecture notes because it's in Transmortis, so it can hand out stunned on a bonus. And of course it has an on your heels on that, because why not? Did I ever mention that it's really stupid that lecture notes isn't enemy only? Because I've seen plenty of people stun their own models just to place in base contact. Or I can see a lot of people stunning their own models
on
so
your
that they can
heels
place
is
in base.
enemy
Oh,
only.
and on your heels is enemy
Yeah.
only. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. It's late. It's late.
You're good.
Right.
Yes.
And then the craziest thing on this guy is probably the rancid smell action. So needs a 6 to go off, no suits required until the end phase. Enemy models within range suffer a negative flip on actions targeting models other than this model. And then if you get a ram, once per activation, enemy models within range have to pass a TN 12 duel or gain staggered. So that's a 4-inch pulse off of a 50 mil model. That's bananas.
Yeah.
That is so many willpower duels or gain staggered. Plus all the other stuff that this guy does and all the other stuff that the other models do. I'm not going to get into all that, but it's freaking credible.
I think you're missing
Maeve,
one
you play
major...
Rezzers. Kylie, you play Rezzers.
Yeah.
What do you think?
You're missing one major thing about this model.
Oh, go ahead.
Feudal
go ahead.
Struggle
is
insane.
Yeah.
You can't
Where did
move.
I miss Feudal Struggle?
So that's
I see.
halfway on the
left.
Yeah. You can't move except for disengaging, so they can't be pulled out by pushes. They literally are stuck. And there are so many models that's their way to survive, is pushing out, getting out, being, you can't do that. You're stuck. And
you base Ma Tucket with this guy and she can't scamper out.
Yeah.
Oh, and he's at 50 mil base, and if you go to a wall that's a corner and you somehow yeet the person inside that corner, they cannot move until you kill the Leftovers.
Yep.
And why that's important is your opponent will ignore this guy. They just will never attack him. Because it's never worth giving you... Because everything you talked about that they split into, they're all significant.
Yeah.
So they count for schemes, strats, they can interact, like all. So the more you're spreading them, the less models I have to deal with you, and the more models you're getting that can do things. And even worse, when they're the last bites, is they can stop you from being allowed to interact. So like letting them turn into those things in late game when you're trying to score your final points is like a kiss of death. But there are crews you don't take him against. You don't take him against burning crews, because the condition will, if they get enough burning on him, they'll just knock him down and let him burn to death. Hazardous things like that, and anti-demise. Because this guy's an okay 8-stone. Like in a McMorning crew, where you could put like the upgrades on in McMorning 2, you could probably still get the work out of him as an 8-stone model. But really, if you're just bringing him as he is for 8 stones, like in a Transmortis crew, and you're having to take out one of like the students of Viscera, that's a tough say. Like you have to make sure that they start like splitting, and the best way to do that is corner someone where they can't disengage and they have to kill you to get their model out.
Yep, I can dig it. So that's my pick. Maeve, what is yours?
Well, that was
Is it
mine,
Ezekiel?
but
Oh,
it's
that was
not
yours?
Ezekiel.
Nice.
I'm still so mad. Actually, I want to talk about Bosch Anomaly.
Nice.
Nice.
Such cool
Fucking
models
pumped about this model.
that look
Mhm.
fantastic. Like I'm really excited about that.
So
I
one thing I'd really be interested in hearing, excuse me, as I burp into the microphone, is when at first glance you look at this model and you're like, there's a lot of cool stuff on here, but I don't get it. So from a Rezer perspective, enlighten me.
well, I'm not a full-time reser yet, so I'm still working on it. But
She's just dabbling in the necrotic arts.
like, so the fruiting bodies is really cool. Anytime you put more severe terrain on a table, it's good, especially if your opponent is not necessarily like building anything to ignore your severe terrain, and suddenly like every scheme marker, every corpse is a severe terrain is really good. I mean, like just in general, like you've got an 8 soulstone model that's hard to wound regen 1. Is potentially has the ability to get more regen and terrifying and all the fun stuff that upgrades can give you. um, Drain magic is a really solid trigger on a melee attack. I think Drain magic is probably one of those triggers that is underappreciated.
Yeah.
Just because it's a big swing. And a versus move attack that ignores concealment and gives a positive to the duel if they're in severe terrain, which they might be because corpse markers and scheme markers count as severe terrain. And it's a 2/3 blast 3 blast with unexpected ferocity. Um, which if you put this in a morning, like there's plenty of ways, like Red Chapel, to get distracted in Rezzers. I think that's really really cool.
Yeah, that's a good point. Putting this into a Red Chapel
Yeah.
crew where you can just like randomly get a ton of distracted on somebody.
Oh, and more importantly, just from a visual point of view, the iconic Seamus and Molly dancing model that's coming out. Beside this pair, you're having like a dance marathon through Malifaux, which just is so crazy reser that I just want to put them on the board to take a photo of it just to show that I did.
And their tactical actions: 3-inch aura, a friendly models heal 2 with a built-in enemy models pass the TN12 willpower duel, or you can move them in any direction, 3 inches in any direction, is also really really good in like a Seamus crew where you're going to be on negative willpower duels. I think these guys are really really cool. And they also reference their enforcer model, which is cool on his own like reference. But I just think these are a really solid henchmen that are going to do some fun things in the right crews. I could see taking them in McMorning too, because you're going to make corpses severe terrain for enemy models, and we're going to have corpses pretty. McMorning can pretty much drop corpses wherever he wants to. And there's just lots of ways to hand out distracted. I think these guys are really fun. Like
yeah, it's a super cool model, and the sculpt is, I'm sure, going to be
great,
outstanding.
Right. And Oscar,
yeah,
looks
this
cool
starter
too,
box
so.
is going to look fantastic. Oscar's going to look awesome. The Dapperlings are going to look great. Like it's, yeah, good stuff. Kudos, Weird. Good job. So Kylie, last pick in Rezzers, what you got?
All right, probably surprising nobody that's ever been on the Discord or spoke to me recently since this is coming out. The Ferryman, 100% windmill slam down is the model. I'm a little bit biased as a Jack Dawn Karai player, but this model, just even in isolation, is just chef's kiss. Just it looks cool to start with. Who doesn't want to paint this cool broken boat with like an angry like face on it? Cost 7 with 7 wounds is, I'm happy with that. At least, you're getting the wounds for cost. And 3 separate defensive techs on it. It has armor, it has terrifying, and it has vengeance 2. And as a Karai player who brings a lot of Gwysyn, I watch people think about that and just skip attacking Gwysyn because of that. And Gwysyn don't have armor 1 and 7 wounds. So that Vengeance 2 splashback when you have armor means that if your opponent's not planning it right, they're taking more damage back than they're causing to you. Move sticks and Depths of Malifaux means that it can get all over the place, even if Karai 2 is not pushing it around. It does have Torment, so it does get to draw cards if it attaches or if it attacks people with an upgrade. There's a reason for both Daw and for Karai that this model is so important, as well as the its partner in crime, Kari. Sorry. This thing puts out an upgrade on one of its actions. It is a cursed upgrade, like how Daw uses. There's few and far between of those, and it's so important in a Daw crew to get those out. This one is marked for death, so at the end of the model's activation, one enemy model in line of sight may move 4 inches towards it. The big thing with this one, though, is they don't actually have a way to get rid of it completely. All the other upgrades can be, you can do something like your opponent chooses whether they want it or to get rid of it. This, all they can do is gain staggered and then kick it to another one of their models within 3. It's a friendly model within 3 may gain staggered and then gains the upgrade. So you don't get to get rid of it, which is important to keep those out there. It's drawing cards if it's attacking you with it, which is a big deal. The huge thing about these two models and why this box is an auto include for any Karai and for me as a Jackdaw player is that they are non-minion models that the Lost Love can teleport to. Karai does not have many of those. She's got basically her Kirio, who's always in the worst spot possible, and if not dead and coming back later. And you have an expensive 9-stone henchman. I love Datsuba, but she's pretty costly and doesn't always make that back. And a more fragile than she looks, Jakuna. So if you're running them up the flanks that's 9 and 8, so that's 17 stones. The pair of these guys is 15 stones, and they do, as far as what Lost Love needs, exactly the same thing. He's very important. I actually take him out of keyword in Jackdaw quite a bit because there's some shared keyword models. I'm going to do it way more now that these two are coming out because it's only going to cost me 15 stones instead of math hard. But whatever I was saying, plus paying 10 for Datsuba. So the cost savings on this is a big deal. Its attack claws are strong. Stat 6, 2-inch range on a 7-cost model is great. That's hard to remove. 2, 4, 5 has its classic Feast of Vengeance where it can heal its leader if it kills something. Flay trigger, always good. And way down, if they have the attached upgrade, it becomes a 3, 5, 6 damage track.
Ugh.
And if you're within range of Karai 2, remember that all your crows count as any suit you want as well as a crow. So those flay triggers and stuff are a 50% chance you're going to get them. So the damage that this thing can put out is really more than it looks. Mark of Vengeance, it's always good to shut down healing and put out adversary. That's important for Karai especially. And Lost in the Fog, ignoring concealment is lovely. The target gains distracted 2, or you can move it up to 4 inches. So kind of mildly useful in different ways. That's how it gets its trigger out or its upgrade out. One little niche thing, if you play Jackdaw and you want to try bringing August Heart into the crew because you've never got to, you can now if you want to spend this thing's actions to put Distracted 4 on him at the beginning of the game. Jackdaw does not have a lot of ways to fuel that Distracted engine. I'm not saying do it. I'm not saying this is good. But if you have the model like I do, and maybe because he's got that fun you can't interact around me aura, maybe in like Cloak and Dagger, he might be worth it. Like I'm willing to experiment now that I have a way to get some Distracted on him. Anyways, Ferryman for sure, hands down. Kari, I understand, is a little bit fragile for her cost, but I will be playing with these two a lot, and I don't think you'll see a Karai crew or a Jackdaw crew that I don't have the Ferryman in it.
All right. Well, I think you touched on all the bases that I had to chime in on. May, have you got anything to add?
No, Kylie is more of an expert here, but I will say that Kylie, like I asked Kylie last week, I was like, I'm thinking about playing Karai. Why do I want to play these guys? And that pretty much summed it up right there. So I expect you'll see these guys a lot with Karai.
Mm-hmm. So, Kylie, we're on to our last faction. Thunders, you've got first pick. What do you have?
Well, I'm going to go for the biggest shock of the evening and go for the real low-cost minion of... No, I'm actually going to go with Zhang.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is the other model I think may see a nerf by the time it's done, because I can't see a thing on this card that isn't just over-tuned and amazing. I'm not saying broken. I'm not going onto that soapbox yet. But holy crap. Like, there's no reason not to have this thing as a versatile in your crew of almost any crew in Thunders. Maybe exaggeration, but so he's got 5/5 for willpower and defense, but a 7 move, which really comes into handy because he's got that feline reflexes like the cat, I forget from the starter box.
Kara.
So if you don't discard a card when attacking this thing, it has got a 7 to resist. So it gets to use its move to resist the action. What I didn't realize at first is that if there's something that's resisted by size, I believe that still works. I think if you try to up we go with it, it could be a size 7.
Sure does.
So kind of a weird thing, but I just automatically thought defensive stats and went, no, I guess it's just your resist stats. So the exploit
I have had that come into play with Kara before, so
yeah, did you?
It happens. Oh yeah.
Yeah, so exploit vulnerability is its once per activation. After it resolves an attack action that damages an enemy model, a friendly model in line of sight may discard a card to interact. So I think Zip 2 has, if not that, something very
similar, yeah.
It is a size 3, 50 mil big kitty. It's going to see stuff. So as long as you've got a card in hand, this will be attacking and damaging models. So free interacts is pretty useful. Unimpeded is good because that move 7 running through 3 patches of trees is just hilarious. Like, watch Titania scream as this big angry stone cat it comes running through her underbrush. And it has warning growl, so damage flips against friendly models within 2 suffer negative. Even just on itself, that means it has 10 hard to wound wounds that you could probably be a stat 7 to resist. But on a 50 mil base, it's probably not on its own. Though it is move 7. This thing may run away from your crew, so that may not come up as often as you think.
I hate warning growl so much. Oh my god, it's such a good ability.
Yeah, because it wasn't broken on a little medic with a dog, so let's put it on a 50 mil angry statue. But they have, so its attack is strong, stat 6, 3, 4, 5. All of its triggers are pretty good. You can mutilate to give slow, pouncing strike, which is just ridiculous. So if you attack, then you could just place within 5 and attack another model. Worthy opponent, so you can draw a card, and if the target's killed, you discard. So like some card draw, because why not? Yeah. So some interacting card draw.
It's fine.
Intimidating roar, so if you don't feel like murdering things, it can help any crew with pushing targets 6 inches away, and if it's a minion, it gains slow.
That's important for Thunders. I'm going to chime in there. That's important for Thunders because the faction as a whole doesn't have a ton of ways to move your crew up the field on turn 1. So having Intimidating Roar on a model that also has a bonus, which we're going to talk about in just a sec, to catch back up is very, very good.
Yeah, well, and the trigger on Intimidating Roar is really solid because on a mask, the target suffers 1 damage, but then is pushed up to 3 in any direction. So you push, just kind of like we were saying with this Dr. Silas, where you get that extra push. The 6 inches does have to be away from the cat, but then it can push for a point of damage. It can push 3 inches in any other direction or that direction. Mm-hmm. So either it can go 9 inches away, or it can go and then move around. It can push so you can hook around things. So it gets a lot of versatility out of that roar, which is good because if you're not mutilating things with this cat, you're going to feel bad. So that roar better be really useful. And then, yes, this little thing at the bottom, it's 1 tactical action. That's its bonus. Stalk Prey. So target an enemy model ignoring range, because, there's no range on it. Move this model up to its move in inches towards the target, and then there's a sudden strike trigger on this to take another melee action. You can get 2 pouncing strikes and a attack off of this thing's bonus. It can get 5 attacks in a turn. That is a magical Christmas land, but it can happen, and all of those involve movement tricks, so you can get around to some pretty weird places. This thing is big. It is going to be way faster than you think, because it's move 7, it's unimpeded, it's going to run through a forest, hit something, jump, hit something, bonus action towards another thing, hit something, and then it bounce and attack something. Like, it's going to be crazy. It's going to be like watching McMorning 2 when he takes the Rogue Necromancy's attack and starts stoning for all the pouncing strikes, where you're like, why is this thing going everywhere? Yeah, there's nothing on this thing's card that I'm like, oh, that's too bad, or you know what, I really wish it had. Like, I was surprised it was a construct at first because the art. I guess I can see the veins of like marble. But yeah, it's versatile. It's not going to cost you any more out of keyword to take it. If you have any fun construct stuff, I don't know Thunders much. I'm just getting into Thunders now. If there's any really cool obey things on constructs or something, probably Mayfang might have something.
Yeah, Mayfang with Sparks and Command Construct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
yeah.
you can get even more actions
More
out of this
attacks
thing.
and pouncing
Yeah.
strikes. Yep. And then the other thing I was going to mention was playing this guy in Misaki so that you jam him in your opponent's face and they're forced to discard cards so that they can attack his defense and willpower 5s, which then drains their hand for the executes that Misaki has.
Yep.
Yeah.
You're gonna see this guy a lot. You're gonna see a lot of 3D printed stuff and like stand-in models till he comes out. I think that's my pick. I think any Thunders player, you're gonna see this on the table constantly because it's just exciting to play with.
Yep, definitely.
Super
So
good.
Maeve, what's your last pick?
I'm gonna leave the good one for you because I know how much you love this model, so I will leave it for you because I love you, Jesse. Remember
What
that.
a gal.
Remember that.
What a gal.
I'm gonna talk about the one that I think it's funny because Landon was just talking about how much he thinks it's bad, but I've played against it twice now, and I am already deciding I don't like it, and that's Ban Ying.
All three of my picks are going to get chosen this round,
Yeah.
so I'm happy about
Yeah,
this.
and Ban Ying is really, really interesting to me, partially because he can do the same thing that Raspy does, which is cheat at interacting, because he can interact through the sunless selves. So he can summon sunless selves off of shadow markers. Or friendly scheme markers, and they come into play. I think they're mindless. They come into play, but they've already activated. But then there are move 5 models that don't have health, that he can basically, and they don't engage anything or ever are engaged. So he can walk through them, or they can walk through them, and he can just do what he wants with them. Like, they're really, really good. He can attack through them. He's got range and line. He can draw range and line of sight through them with his illusionary strike. Which one of the triggers on his melee is just draw a card and gain a pass token. I don't know that that's bad ever. Like,
yeah. I mean, that unworthy for attention is, I mean, probably one of the strongest triggers in the game, and it's only ever appeared on the worst models in the faction that you never ever take, because it's on Katanaka snipers, which are just objectively awful models, and it's on crime bosses, which I love to hate.
Yeah, he can teleport to sunless cells, so he can basically always get away. He has enlightened, so he gets chi. It's just, he also gets chi when things die, which is really good.
What's good, because I think he can spend the chi to summon the shadow selves instead of a card. So I think he can spend a chi or a card. Is it?
I believe so.
Yeah.
But just discard a card or chi.
Token,
Yeah. So he can fuel up the chi, which means it's less draining on your hand to pull out those shadows as much as possible.
Yeah. And like, I don't know what he looks like in a monk crew, but I've played against him in Misaki twice now, and there are so many shadow markers over the board that it's literally impossible to not like deal with them. And then Misaki can also like bounce to them, because after they, the sunless cells only stay around for one turn, and then they turn into another shadow marker, so it just becomes more places Misaki can get to.
Just the fact that he can summon walking shadow markers is so huge for Misaki 1.
Which very specifically cannot be removed by marker removal.
Right.
It is a model. Right. So that was the biggest thing that stood out to when I started playing around with this guy, is that Misaki 1 especially is always scared that one important marker is just going to get eaten.
Yeah.
If he makes it into that person, the best they can do is push it somewhere, because they can't kill it, and then it'll become a marker. And if you activate with her right away, you can use it.
Well, and he's got a stat 6, right, that ignores concealment, versus defense. Doesn't do a whole lot of damage, but it drops a shadow marker into base contact and a trigger to push a friendly sunless self in line of sight up to 4 inches. So basically, it makes sure that she is always going to pop up where you need her to pop up.
Yeah. And the other thing I would call out on that is not only is it a stat 6, but he does have chi, so it's theoretically a stat 8.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got a shadow pin trigger, which you get to drop a shadow marker in base contact with the target before the trigger resolves. So if you hit the crow, you always get the shadow pin no matter what.
Yeah.
It's real gross. And putting shadow markers in base contact with enemy models from Masaki 1 to unbury right next to is
you don't need to move
gnarly.
if you've got the marker under their feet.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
The other big thing too is that he's going to be replacing Ototo in all the Asami summoning lists.
Yeah,
because he'll make the shadow markers. So you get that the fancy. I get out a bunch of Katashiro right away. That's the paper dolls, right? Yeah.
Yep.
It's getting
but at a 2-stone discount. How about that?
Yeah, but at a 2-stone discount and probably even more efficiently. Like, yeah, he's you're gonna see him a lot. Yeah, he's a great model, and just cool looking. Like, just
I don't know. I don't know what you're gonna see. Like, I don't know what he's gonna be like in Monk, but I feel like in Masaki he's really
I have no idea. I can't figure out how he fits into that crew. So, whatever. All right, last pick of the night. Story of Suzaku. Who is surprised? I'm a Red Library player. I love him to death, and this model is incredible. It's a Phoenix, and that's pretty dope. It is a pretty moderate stat line. The big stuff on this guy is that he doesn't take damage from burning. He has the flaming body thing, so he can reduce damage with burning like Fire Golem does. Move 6 with flight has well versed like the rest of the story and Red Library keywords. Big stuff that we see on here: heated words, enemy models treat friendly scheme markers within Aura 6 as burning 1. And if you've ever played against Lin-Li 1 Bibliothecary, boy oh boy does she put out a lot of scheme markers. You're going to have a field of burning hazardous terrain all around anywhere that Lin-Li is. He's got Up We Go, which is amazing. Got a couple of triggers which are kind of neato, but nothing crazy. Smolder is nice because it deals some extra damage, but nothing crazy. Conflagration, which is the same thing that you see on Sonya 1, I think, has Conflagration, right?
I think so. I think that's how she has summons, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, so it's basically... Yeah. It's basically like an 8-inch range gun where it's 2, 3, 5 and models damage gain burning +1. They get to ignore models with burning for friendly fire. It's got blaze. So you're like, okay, so like what's the big deal? Like all the stuff that this model does is just kind of average. And then you get to the bonus actions, and it's got the Wind's Wrath, which is handy. Same thing that Yasunori has, that model that hasn't seen play in years and years and years.
Who?
Yeah, exactly. Basically just a 3-inch pulse to move a bunch of stuff an inch. The important thing on this one is that it's not just friendly models, it's any models, and you're doing it in 2 different crews, those being Oni and Story. If you're playing Bibliothecary Lin-Li 1, you're making a field of burning scheme markers that are all hazardous, and you get to push enemy models around in those, and your models ignore them. And if you're playing him in Asami 1, not as important, but if you happen to be trying out Asami 2, all those rift markers are also hazardous, which is pretty gross. And then the most important thing for this guy is Wind Up Bird. Stat 6-inch range, stat 6 needs a 13, so it takes a 7, friendly only. Discard a flicker token from the target or end 1 condition on the target. This model gains burning 2. Why is that important? Well, removing flicker tokens from models in the Oni keyword is incredibly important and huge. Not easy to do. Not easy to do at all. It gives this guy damage mitigation because he gets burning. And then if you're playing Lin-Li 1 or 2, depending on your crew setup, but if you're playing Lin-Li 1, she's got a thing where in the start phase, she can make a friendly model take an action and gain slow. which you can then remove with Wind Up Bird. So you're not slowed anymore, and you gain some damage mitigation because you got burning. It's not a model that's ever going to see play outside of those 2 keywords, but it makes both of those 2 keywords absolutely sing, and it's going to be a gorgeous model. Yeah, I'm very, very high on this one.
So can I ask a question just for like
Sure.
a technical point? Would
Sure.
you love it more if it was 6 stones and a little bit less good? Because I have a lot of people who play with a lot of the stories, and the problem is that you have to say this one and this one, or this one and this one. There's never the tween shall meet. Like I think I think it's good for new players because picking in and out and teching your crews is really easy if they're all the same cost. But I was really hoping when I saw him, he doesn't look like a very big bird. And I was like, oh, maybe there'll be like a 6-cost story model. Like that would be so good because there's so many things that trigger on story, but the stories are all the big models and the expensive models.
It's a stacked keyword, and it's very difficult to budget everything in. Before it used to be, I take all 3 stories and other stuff. And now it's like, can I actually take all 4 stories? Do I have the points for that? No, you don't. And there's technical reasons in Lindley 1 that I don't need to get into right now, where you have to have a certain number of red library models to make that crew actually work and get the activation control that you want out of it. This is not a red library model, so it takes up one of those slots, but it does make for some interesting decisions during hiring. I don't think that you ever take this model in Lindley 2, but you always take it in Lindley 1. I don't think that you very often take this model in Asami 1, and if you play Asami 2, you definitely need to take it, but that means you're playing Asami 2. So, yeah. So we're just going to quickly recap all of the teams. That way you folks can figure out who you want to vote for. I'll go ahead and do mine first. So that was in Arcanists, Cedra and Sightless Snow. In Bayou, I had Hog Oil Salesman. Explorers had Host Ducat. Guild, I had Bracer. Neverborn, I had the Sizigi Sisters. Outcasts, I had the Bad Omen. Rezzers, I had the Leftovers. And Thunders, I had the Story of Suzaku. Maeve, you want to recap your team real quick for everybody?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started out with the Boilermaker in Arcanist because he's pretty cool. In Gremlins, I went for my buddies, the Swashbucklers. In Explorers, we had the Hand of Janus. In Guild, we had the Propagandist. In Neverborn, I had Ithana. In Outcast, I took the Fumigator. And in Rezzers, I took the Amash and or what I can't
Bosch Anomaly.
Bosch Anomaly, that's it. And then I had the Banying in 10 Thunders.
10 Thunders. And then Kylie, what was your team?
All right, for Arcanist, I had Irina. For Bayou, I had Houdini. Explorers, I had Casey Jones. For Guild, I have the Nightcrawler. Neverborn, I had the Leech King. Outcasts, I have Dr. Silas. Rezzers, I have the Ferryman. And Thunders, I have Zhang.
All right. So we're going to be putting up a poll around the time that this episode releases. That way everybody can weigh in and let us know who they think got the best team. That's pretty much all I had to share. So I would just ask all of you to please, as always, keep your conversations boring and stay weird, folks.